all those in between, even if you don't consider yourself a gentleman or a lady, I don't care. I got this sign in the studio right here. It's a what I consider to be the libertarian bathroom sign sitting right in front of me. It's a sign you might see on some bathrooms going forward in our progressive future. It's got a unicorn on one side and a dragon on the other. And on the bottom it says, oh, whatever, just wash your hands. All right? That's like this show. I don't care how you identify. I don't care if you're a lady or gentleman or whatever in between. Just, first of all, you know, be clean, wash your hands.
Tell the truth.
Yeah, that's right. Secondly, tell the truth. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking for.
You can identify as, like, you know, a Roz or something. Like, I don't really identify as male or female, you know?
All right,
it's just whatever I feel like. You know, if the men's restroom is open and the women's is occupied,
there you go.
I'm not gonna lie. That's what I do.
Which usually is the case, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. There's always lines at the window.
I know how to squat. It's cool. It's whatever.
I actually think that would be a topic for a totally different show. I'm honestly, I wonder sometimes, I ask my sister and my wife, what is the frequency upon which the squatting actually takes place? Do you know what I'm saying?
I was like 4 or 5, I think, when I saw a urinal. And I was asking my dad. I said, how do guys sit on that? And they're like, he goes, oh, no, honey, that's not how it is for us.
It's a different thing.
I was like, it's just so weird. I don't get how you sit on those things.
Hey, I want to give a big shout out again to Sherry Voluntary from yesterday. I think we play well together with each other. By that I mean
she's a rock star.
Yeah, she is good. She's good. And I told y'all before, man, like, I know what I'm talking about when I say this stuff. Like, I disagree with most of what she says when it really gets down to the nitty-gritty, if you will, of the argumentation. And some of that played out yesterday. Mm-hmm. And by and large, I do think I'm still correct. And unfortunately, I think I'm correct because of 3 years worth of training to show how this system actually works. At the lowest possible level, how it works, and the highest possible level of how it works. Now, philosophically speaking, I would like to say that I agree with Sherry, but that's why I think we work so well. Is because of her consistency of her worldview. That's nothing frustrates me more, Roz, than logical fallacies, reliance upon logical fallacies, and true inconsistencies throughout your worldview.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think that you guys, like this is the epitome of sitting down and having a logical debate.
Right? Yeah.
It really is. Like, you can still do that, guys. I know it's crazy, but you can. You can sit down and talk about the things that you do not agree upon and actually be okay. There were no knives. There were no guns drawn, you know?
Right.
It was fine. There was no name calling. There was none of that. It was awesome.
Yeah, and actually, you know, just to show what Roz is talking about, Sherry actually made a post yesterday, not in referencing this show in particular, but just referencing something to the effect of, hey, I was able to go on a talk radio station, a conservative talk radio station yesterday, and talk about for a long time that there's no such thing as a good cop. And that was Sherry's words. I mean, you heard her say it. We talked about that for 2 solid segments, and I think there was 378 comments. I was trying to read through at least a couple then this morning as I was prepping a little bit more. I do a lot of prep during the afternoons, then I do a little bit more last-minute prep just to see what's broke overnight. And I got to tell you, it kind of goes to what Roz was saying. The vitriol that was throughout this comment section is just astounding. Now, when someone makes a statement that there's no such thing as a good cop, it seems to be inflammatory on its face. I get that. But at a minimum, if you know who Sherry is, you would like at least to hear this person. Is she not the sweetest person you've ever met?
She really is.
There's not a mean bone in her body. She likes to defend her worldview. She likes to defend her
she
political
likes cats,
stance.
guys. You know, you can't be a mean person. You like cats.
Actually, that's not a good argument at all. I
hate cats, so
yeah, okay,
but I'm not saying that I'm the nicest person you've ever met either.
Right.
But she is.
Anyways, I just want to give a shout out to Sherry again for coming on here, giving us a different perspective. We're going to try and make her a bit more of a regular contributor. Because honestly, Roz, I was slightly... she
ruffles the feathers, and I like that.
Well, but some she doesn't. I was actually going to go there too about ruffling feathers. And I wasn't surprised by, I wasn't taken aback. I still don't know the best way to describe how I felt yesterday. But I want to say that the vast majority of my Facebook was in agreement with her. And actually not necessarily arguing against me. I feel like I could come on the show sometimes, especially with the cool kids table at the Facebook, and say almost anything.
Well, I think that I agree with Sherry on some of her views. Now, not everything, not everything that she agrees with, but
sure.
At some points I do.
Yeah.
The cop thing, I agree with her.
Yeah, well, we were talking yesterday, too, that it was a very healthy experiment, not just for my audience, but I think it would be a healthy experiment, too, for me to come on her podcast. We're setting that up as well, too, and we'll push that all around. But even on our Facebook yesterday, the vast majority of the people on the Facebook, Cool Kids Table tend to have a different perspective sometimes than the callers do on the terrestrial side. With that being said, the vast majority of the people on the Facebook were in somewhat of agreement with her and actually sort of arguing against me, saying, no, you got to listen to what Sherry's saying. And anyway, so that's what I'm saying. I think it was healthy for me. It was healthy for everyone involved. As of today's show, though, we have a very interesting show today. We're going to be picking up a little bit more on civil asset forfeiture in the 30 segment, 8:30 to 9. There was an interesting article that came out yesterday from the Tennessee Star. Martin Daniel, I suppose, went on the record somewhere. Do I need to get to line one, Roz, by the way? Is that just... No, okay. Martin Daniel went on the record somewhere and said something to the effect of our legislators are quite simply afraid of seriously taking on civil asset forfeiture. A very true statement. A very, very true statement. It may not be a comfortable statement. Yeah, well, they are. I mean, reasonably scared, right? I mean, it doesn't make it correct.
Right.
It's just, it makes sense if you have a massive lobbyist group against you. I'm not calling police officers lobbyists. I'm just saying officers have a vested interest in this. Legislators have a vested interest in doing what's right by their constituents. And then you have these two bulls, these two rams that are constantly, running against each other.
Well,
So
who's going to be voting on it is the lobbyist. It's not the cops.
Well, that's a different thing, right? But no, I mean, it makes sense that legislators are scared of it. And I don't mean scared like they're running to the hills of it. I just mean that when you're a legislator, you weigh the repercussions of every single decision you make. Which bathroom to go to sometimes, right? When to step out of your door, which meetings to take and which not to take, who you should meet with at which particular times.
When you go up against the government, period.
Yeah.
It's not a fun game.
No, yeah, exactly. You're
going to make it as hard as possible.
Exactly.
That's why people don't do it.
And it's difficult to find an officer out there that would be open to suggestions to remove a very, very big tool in their arsenal. Right. Whether it's a credible tool or not is the topic of discussion today. But it is, however you feel about civil asset forfeiture, for a police officer, it is a very big tool in their arsenal. So when Martin Daniel comes out and says that, hey, some legislators are afraid to take that on, yeah, man, I get it. I understand. Now, some should. If Mr. Henry were elected right now, I would have to go out there. I would have to be beholden to my values, to my virtues, and I would have to say, I may only... And here's the thing that legislators are actually weighing, and this is the difficult part of what Martin Daniel's talking about. A legislator would have to go out there and be willing to admit on the record, I will be okay serving a single term, or not serving any term at all, to make a stance in this. That's what they're risking. And for every representative, it's not necessarily just about constantly maintaining power. For every representative, it's not necessarily about being this career politician. Most of the representatives or potential representatives that I've had in this room or on this phone have told me that they're okay with term limits. You know Mr. Henry's opinion then. I am not okay with term limits. I think the term limit should be the vote itself. If you have a person that has a calling upon his life, that does a fantastic job up there, that knows the ins and outs, knows what rooms to go to, who to talk to, how to talk to them, to get things accomplished for the betterment of his constituency, let him stay up there. Let him or her stay up there. Once you figure out how to make that legislative sausage, you don't want a new chef in there every single 2 years. If you do, put forward a better individual and take out the old guy. That is the term limit. The voting process itself is the term limit. It should be the term limit. With that being said, Mr. Henry's opinion on civil asset forfeiture is one that I feel so strongly about this. I would have to be willing to admit, probably during a campaign before I'm even elected, this is something I'm willing to fight for. If it means I don't get elected, fine. But at least I can change a few hearts and minds in this audience right now. However, if I am elected, I'm also going to have to realize I may face some pushback. Some pushback from some people that I've never faced before. A strength of which I've never faced before. And that might mean that I may lose the next election coming around, but that's something I'd have to be willing to risk. Nevertheless, we're going to have a guy named Erik Wiatr in here. One of my personal friends. Actually, let me say this too. Erik Wiatr is one of these guys that, he was one of the, sort of the founding members of these Liberty meetings that we used to have on Tuesday nights. That was the genesis of this program, Real News. So he actually has him, Richard Esparza, and Nathan Keebley, all these guys were sort of like I said, the epicenter, if you will, of what Sean and I developed out of this Real News program. So if you like the program, give some credit to him. He'll be in talking about civil asset forfeiture, what's going on. We also have a guy named David Welch in. He's from Knoxville Family Hypnosis. Knoxville Family Hypnosis. He's going to be in talking about what he does over there. And when Becky originally brought this to me, I thought, oh, are you going to ask me to be hypnotized on air? Because I'm not about that. And I totally misconstrued what the Knoxville Family Hypnosis is. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that is, what the organization is, what they can and cannot help you with, things of that nature. We got to hit a break coming up here, though. I have a couple stories I want to get to today before we get to the local guests, before we deal with civil asset forfeiture and into the 9 o'clock hour as well. It's taken me almost a solid week now to find somebody that I consider worthy enough or credible enough to make, you're not going to hate me for this, but we need to go through it, to make a positive argument for reparations. Yes, I said that. Christopher Hitchens is the guy. I have been through, I cannot tell you, countless hours of video, countless pages of argumentation to try and figure out something that's palatable, not just to me, but to my audience, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what might be the reasoning behind serious consideration of reparations? Aside from, here's the problem, y'all, is Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Alexander Cortez, every single Democrat and their mother, and every single presidential candidate. There's now all these prerequisite check boxes that you have to throw off before you can actually even announce that you're running for president. And one of them now tends to be reparations. Cory Booker, I actually have this clip here as well. Cory Booker was saying that he somewhat laments that has become a prerequisite because in his mind, he's the only one that has a genuine feeling about actually wanting to push an idea of reparations. So I thought to myself, okay, this is the first time in a very long time this conversation has come up in any serious way. Although it may not be that serious if it's just something simple as a prerequisite. Nevertheless, Christopher Hitchens gives a very impassioned speech. Now, granted, it's a foreigner, if you will, a Brit giving an opinion to Americans about how to run an American society, which a lot of people don't like. That's one of the main reasons why I hated Piers Morgan so much. One of the main reasons why I get so teed off about John Oliver as well. Nevertheless, I think he makes some decent points. Also, I don't know where I'm going to start with this here, if it's the reparations stuff. I'm pretty sure I'm going to start with the immigration stuff that I barely touched on yesterday. I want to go back to and just show the discord that we have right now. The disparity between what Democrats used to think and what Trump is saying now. And eventually today I have to get to, y'all, I don't know how I feel about William Barr yet, our newly appointed Attorney General, and now confirmed. I don't know how about him yet, but I will say this much. If you didn't watch yesterday's testimony, it was only about 2 hours, yesterday's hearing in front of the House Committee, he was supposed to be there talking about the DOJ budget, and this obviously turned into something wildly different. And I'm telling y'all, the way he handled this yesterday was just, I don't have a word for it. It was just so beautiful, dude. It was just so beautiful. Way better than Sessions ever could have done. He just doesn't care. He just doesn't care what Democrats think. And it's so awesome. 7:21, hit this first break. Be right back.
What's the world coming to? What's the world coming to? Everyone's going to the moon. What's the world coming to?
Today asking what people think about
The Lars Larson Show.
Hey, Knoxville, it's Lars Larson. Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. The money you're paying now is going to people who are collecting now. You're hoping that by the time you hit Social Security age, the people paying then will be paying the check you receive then. The monies you paid out, those monies have long since been sent out in the form of checks to retired Americans.
Weeknights at 7 on Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760.
Hey y'all, this is Rick Allen, host of Rick's House Home Improvement Radio Show. We want to welcome our newest sponsor, EastTennesseeExteriors.com. You can find them on Facebook, and they're the people you can trust. EastTennesseeExteriors.com. 865-357-4326. 865-357-4326. Whether it's roofing, siding, windows, and more, great products at a fair price from a company you can trust. East Tennessee Exteriors, 865-357-4326.
What do Elvis Presley, Elizabeth Taylor, Patrick Swayze, Joan Rivers, and Prince all have in common? The answer may surprise you. It's Fountain City Jewelers. Jewelry from the estates of over 20 Hollywood celebrities are coming to Fountain City Jewelers Saturday, April 13th.
If you're going to have a coherent, cohesive society, then everybody has to have some agreed upon rules. I agree. I travel around the world. Just got back from Cuba. I can't get benefits for Cuba.
I think it's good for, some people should learn English because they're not going to understand a lot.
I agree wholeheartedly. If you're going to come to our country, you should assimilate.
It's only fair if you're a citizen and you have the proper documents.
Would you say that you support the president on this particular issue?
Well, if you're asking me about this particular comment,
Yes.
then that's about all I can say is I can understand and appreciate that comment.
I think Trump is right. He needs to enforce this law. Americans should be first.
So would it surprise you if I told you that these were President Obama's comments, actually not President Trump's? Would that surprise you?
No, I know I don't agree with a lot of President Obama's immigration policy ideas as well, so my ideas definitely wouldn't change.
It doesn't surprise me at all. If it's Obama, Trump, whoever, it's law is the law.
Like, what's up with Obama? I need something to tell him. For real. Let me call Obama.
Just get him up on the phone. So does it surprise you at all if I tell you these are from President Obama as opposed to President Trump? These are actually President Obama's quotes.
To me, that would make a lot more sense.
Would it surprise you if I said these are actually President Obama's comments?
No, not really. I don't think any of our presidents have been completely great. So
it would open up opportunities for them if they learned English.
Yes. Yeah, it was yes, most definitely. Yeah.
So that sounds a little bit like you might be in favor of some parts of assimilation.
Probably some.
So maybe some assimilation, but with respect for original cultures.
yeah.
Do you get ever any heat from anybody for supporting Trump on that issue?
Yeah, they have their comment, but I really don't care because I've been around the world and I can't get what you can get. Only in America you can do this.
So would it surprise you if I told you that these were surprise you?
$7:26 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. Being that it's 7:26, let me just go through this for the next 4 minutes here, y'all. I thought my headphones stopped working.
I meant to turn the music off. My bad.
That's funny. Anyways, I said multiple times on this program before that I don't know. I have a special place in my heart for the innocence of a child. Did the child pastor thing for a while. I know y'all hate hearing that. I would just always feel like I need to qualify that statement. Everyone loves kids, man. What are you talking about? Everyone loves the innocence of a child. Well, no, I get that, but devoted years of my life to, I don't know, training boys to become men and training girls to become women. And when I see someone else, especially at the level of a public institution, especially at the level of a sitting president, sort of not just take that for granted, but I don't know, sort of actively either instill or enact policies that, you've heard it before, that Trump is separating kids from their families and just this blatant disregard for the family unit. And Democrats want to make the claim that, I don't know, it's not necessarily about the laws, right? It's not necessarily about the laws that are on the books. It's about keeping these families together, and it's about a child woman over here who's coming in with her children who has a genuine concern for seeking asylum because her family members are being slaughtered in the street. And, what Trump has been saying recently, and the policy that's apparently totally on his shoulders and his administration's shoulders, to create this policy, right? To create this policy of separating the children from their families. It wasn't done before him. And apparently there's no need for it. You know, there's been all kind of different projections and all kind of different ways that we could help the situation out. There's been all kind of different proposals of increasing federal judges, and apparently Trump has just stalemated all that. It seems that the quasi-racism has turned into full racism, has turned into full xenophobia now. And he came out a few days back and made this statement here about it's going to be unlikely that children are going to be able to stay with their families if they're brought across the border. It's going to be unlikely that children are going to be able to stay with their families when they're brought across the border. And I'm telling there's not many things that would cause me to lose faith in President Trump. Like I said, he's been a guy that's checked off many boxes for me, and I only needed a few more. But not being able to check off this box might negate the entirety of the other ones that I found approval for in him. He came out a few days back. I'm going to play this clip right now talking about children are unlikely to stay with their parents if they come across. And this is the policy that Trump has created, okay? This isn't a policy that he inherited. This isn't something that his administration walked into. Alexandria Cortez just said it. She just told us a few days back through definitive evidence that it is quite simply Trump's policies mixed and coupled with global warming that's causing this immigration influx. And then when you have an immigration influx that you've created that didn't come from previous administrations, what's your solution? To separate the kids from their families? Let me just play this clip here. This is President Obama, this is President Trump, rather, sorry. Trump a few days back. Just listen to him here.
While we intend to do the right thing by these children, their parents need to know that this is an incredibly dangerous situation, and it is unlikely that their children will be able to stay. And I've asked parents across Central America not to put their children in harm's way in this fashion.
Oh, wait a minute. No, it wasn't Trump at all. It wasn't. None of this was Trump. I've been saying the whole time there's a Ninth Circuit decision that happened during the Obama administration. So when Trump comes out and says this the other day, at the end of a meeting, at the end of something that was happening when media was all across the room, when he comes out and says this.
Obama separated the children, by the way. Just so you understand. President Obama separated the children. Those cages that were shown, I think they were very inappropriate. They were built by President Obama's administration, not by Trump. President Obama had child separation. Take a look. The press knows it. You know it. We all know it. I'm the one that stopped it. President Obama had child separation. Now, I'll tell you something. Once you don't have it, that's why you see many more people coming. They're coming like it's a picnic, because let's go to Disneyland. President Obama separated children. They had child separation. I was the one that changed it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so now he has this entire meeting, answers a bunch of questions, and then shovels the media out of the room. On the way out, he drops this bomb at the very end and says, oh, by the way, everything you've been trying to hold me accountable for, it was your previous president that started this thing. You understand why I set this up the way that I did? I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that, yes, the separating the children from their parents is a problem. But fundamentally speaking, what do? What's the alternative? You don't charge the parents with a crime when a crime has been committed? When a violation of law has been committed? Fine, let's be more accurate. A violation of some law, civil, criminal, or otherwise. In any other given situation in America, every single day, when a parent violates some statute on the books, when a codified law has been broken, you separate the parent from the child in any other given situation. So what did the Ninth Circuit say? The Ninth Circuit said, oh, by the way, you can't jail minors. They can't be held accountable at this particular point for a choice that they didn't make. They're not culpable to the extent that their parents are culpable, so you can't put them in the same jail as the parents. The Ninth Circuit said that during the Obama administration. And I just played the clip for you from Obama to warn South American immigrants to not come across the border with their children because your children won't be able to stay with you. This is a bigger problem than just the issue at hand. The bigger problem is the insane, disingenuous nature of our current media establishment. I led up to this situation because that's exactly what I've heard from CNN and MSNBC and New York Times for the past couple of weeks. Now that we have this renewed cycle of what immigration is going on. Let me read this headline to you right now. Fox News, Border Patrol official, caravan-sized influx of migrants arriving every week in Rio Grande Valley. A caravan size of migrants arriving every week in Rio Grande Valley. Here's Breitbart. U.S. projected to add 1.5 million illegal aliens to the population this year. 1.5 million illegal aliens to the population this year. Washington Times, 92%. Here's the headline, Washington Times. 92% of illegal immigrant families ignore deportations. 92% of illegal immigrant families ignore deportations. You're telling me that this is a problem that Trump somehow organically developed by himself in the last 2 years? That there wasn't some orchestrated effort on behalf of somebody else? I'm not trying to add some nefarious motivation or element here. I'm just saying, what's the reasonable response here? Climate change did this? Trump's rhetoric alone? Because Trump is so xenophobic, it's Trump's xenophobia that is causing South Americans to flood into our borders like they never have in the last 20 years. What? Because Trump hates immigrants so much, therefore immigrants want to be in a country where their leader hates them so much? What am I supposed to follow? What is that? And then CNN and MSNBC go off this nonsensical tirade for the last couple of days trying to claim that I'm the crazy one for understanding that Obama also had the same policy.
They have nothing left. They have nothing.
But, Roz, it used to be that blatant lies to the audience members was one thing that you could get away with. In the modern day and age with technology and everybody having Google in the palms of their hands.
I guess you can get away with it today, too.
Well, you can only get away. It's sort of. I mean, you can, but it's just so blatant now. It's just, I could do the same thing. I could do the same thing where I pitch the entire thing like CNN does, say it's all Trump's fault, he's the only one that's ever done this, and then 2 seconds later just Google, did Obama separate parents from their children, blah, 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 and I get 15 videos of Obama speaking the exact same rhetoric, man. I'm losing my mind. 7:35.
No. They are.
Yeah, they are. 7:35 in the morning, hit this break, be right back.
Hey, did you see Candace Owens' comments before the House panel?
I got that clip too, yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the thing where she kind of went back and attacked the one guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole thing in which her whole speech is dynamic.
I mean, I don't know if I had the whole speech. I have some clip version of it. I'll tell you though, John, it's really interesting to see Candace Owens, Diamond and Silk, some of these people now, these anomalies that the left can't account for. It's really fascinating to see like an old white man who's a Democrat that tries to really push an African American for being racist for supporting Trump. It's interesting to see in the moment a person being caught up in their own inconsistencies, right? Their own hypocrisies of like, oh God, what do I do? The left's going to get me here, but the right's going to get me here, and I don't know how to attack her because she's a black woman, but I'm supposed to attack her because she's a Trump supporter, but I can't attack her because she's a black woman. You know what I mean? Right. Like all that stuff was going through the committee members' heads when they were making that. But anyways, her response was pretty fantastic
the
too.
The entire thing, you'd have time to listen to it while the long breaks, but the entire thing, I think it's on the ETR Facebook.
Okay.
I'll look for it.
All right.
Anything else, I'll send it. I'll message.
Tanya Stout Brown, huh? You're the stoutest of the Browns. Where was that video?
Come on. Shoot! Shoot, man! John just sent it to me.
Yeah, I just sent it to you through Messenger.
Yeah. I'm pulling it up.
It is amazing.
I think that's the same video I saved. All right, I'm pretty sure it is.
She has the real short clip about the guy, where the Nader told her not to call somebody stupid. She said, "I didn't say that."
Right.
You're not listening to what you didn't.
Yeah, that was perfect. Yeah.
But that's a long version.
Yeah.
That's her entire speech.
I was good. Okay, yeah, that's the one I had saved too. But
it's amazing.
All right, I'll probably pull that up. Talking reparations later. I'll do it then too.
Well, yeah, that's what she's talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrats' preview. There isn't a single adult today that in good conscience would make the argument that America is a more racist or a more white nationalist society than it was when my grandfather was growing up. And yet we're hearing these terms sent around today because what they want to say is that brown people need to be scared, which seems to be the narrative that we hear every 4 years right ahead of a presidential election. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited, and none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school. That's something that very few people know about me because the media and the journalists and the left are not interested in telling the truth about me because I don't fit the stereotype of what they like to see in black people. I'm a Democrat. I support the President of the United States, and I advocate for things that are actually affecting the black community. I'm honored to be here today in front of you all because the person sitting behind me is my 75-year-old grandfather. I've always considered myself to be my grandfather's child, and I mean to say that my sense of humor, my passion, and my work ethic all comes from the man that is sitting behind me. My grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the segregated South. He grew up in an America where words like racism and white nationalism held real meaning under the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws. My grandfather's first job was given to him at the age of 5 years old, and his job was to lay tobacco out to dry in an attic in the South. My grandfather has picked cotton, and he has also had experiences with a Democrat terrorist organization of that time, the Ku Klux Klan. They would regularly visit his home and they would shoot bullets into it. They had an issue with his father, my great-grandfather. During my former
We used to play pin the tail on the Raws.
Oh, yeah.
It's our party games.
Yeah.
We bob for apples and then we pin the tail on the Raws.
It's like I'm dreaming, like I'm walking by your side. Keep
7:43.
Good morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Henry. So here's what Obama says, and I'm supposed to think that he's not a xenophobe.
While we intend to do the right thing by these children, their parents need to know that this is an incredibly dangerous situation, and it is unlikely that their children will be able to stay. And I've asked parents across Central America not to put their children in harm's way in this fashion.
Okay, so here's where we are. Bernie Sanders, the founder of the progressive movement, the quintessential democratic socialist, or so he says. Before there was a progressivist in this country, we had the Bernie bros. They're the ones that brought this onslaught, the wave of something we have to consider now. It's even in the vein of socialism. And it went beyond that now. It's now become something that there's a moral component to these arguments. A sovereign state is no such thing anymore. A sovereign individual, to be quite frank, is not a thing anymore. You are what you told that you are. You are nothing more than a cog in the machine of your particular group. You are only a component of that group that we tell you that you are. Again, I use this analogy, but it's worth repeating. A transgender individual come out the first day after Trump made his Twitter remark that transgender individuals are no longer going to be allowed in the military. Now, that's a totally different conversation. Whether that was appropriate or not, I don't care. I still don't think it's appropriate to mount major policy decisions through your Twitter account. That's just me. But this transgender author from New York Times comes out and says, you can't legislate away my existence. And I immediately thought to myself, like, oh my, your existence is contingent upon the government telling you what your existence is? Your existence is contingent upon some version of a codified statute to acknowledge your existence? What is that? How do you survive under that? Back to the issue at hand. So we used to all agree upon some version of immigration. Bernie Sanders, this individual that was pushing for this sort of Democrat socialism that is now seeped and bled into this version of open everything. Bernie Sanders even come out the other day and says, no, I'm not for full-on open borders. Okay then, all right. That's a starting point for me. So apparently we're all not for open borders now. At least some of us aren't, which means that we all are for some version of trying to figure out the best scenario, the best solution for this immigration situation that's going on right now. But we have to be able to get through this nonsense. This nonsense right here.
Hey guys, we're in DC today asking what people think about President Obama's comments on assimilation. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it racist? We're gonna ask.
If you're going to have a coherent, cohesive society, then everybody has to have some agreed upon rules. It's
racist.
It's not racist to say, if you're going to be here, then you should learn the language of the country that you just arrived at.
Xenophobe. These are comments from the president about immigration from this weekend, and we're just seeing what people think, and you can read it here.
That's most definitely a racist idea. I don't know what he's doing. He just stop what he's doing for real.
It's extremely racist for him to believe that English is the only language that we should know.
I don't agree with that statement that you have to learn English in order to come to this country.
So you're not in favor of any kind of assimilation at all?
No, I'm not.
English isn't even the dominant language in the world.
I'm against the idea of forcing people to learn English or saying that if you don't learn English, you can't get a job here.
Do you think people should adopt any parts of American culture or not really?
No, I really don't. I think people should be free to live their life wherever they want to live.
Do you think it should be encouraged?
I think that the resources should be made available and accessible to everyone.
So are you in favor of open borders as well?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you should learn the language, but you...
All right, so this video goes on, and then obviously makes the point everybody all of a sudden seems to be flabbergasted by these comments coming from President Obama. Why? How? Why? If something makes sense, it shouldn't matter whose mouth it came from. I'm willing to admit, I've admitted that same thing about Alexander Cortez. Most of what this lady says, I think, is so nonsensical, I can't even begin to wrap my head around it. But when she calls something right, I call it for what it is. She brought forward a bunch of people from the pharmaceutical industry and said, hey, you guys are getting major tax subsidies to research pharmaceutical drugs. Is that correct? They said, yeah, that's correct. Major. Tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And her question was, okay, when you develop some drug and it hits the public market, do the American taxpayers see any dividend on that investment? They said no. Good question. Very good question, because other countries don't do it like that. If I was a venture capitalist investor or whatever they're called, if I put forward $20 million of my own money to develop, I don't know, the Viagra pill or something, and that hit public, you better believe I would expect some return on my investment. Why else would I be investing otherwise? Good question. I'll call it for what it is when it needs to be called. But this nonsense here, this nonsense, the constant, continual, illogical reliance upon pure ad hominems, we have to shirk off. I don't know how to do that. I can't just sit some of these people down and say, oh, by the way, just because of who it's coming from, you should read the argument for what it is. You can't have you can't poison the entire well simply because it's coming from Trump's mouth. Well, yeah, you can. Why? Because I've been told you can. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that. And I don't want to manipulate people, but I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking that's what we're going to have to start doing. I don't know the situation like what's going on with the immigration situation right now. Do I have to read these headlines again? Border Patrol official, caravan-sized influx of migrants arriving every week in Rio Grande Valley. U.S. projected to add 1.5 million illegal aliens to the population this year. 92% of illegal immigrants' families ignore deportations. You want to know why southern states are so much more upset than, say, California or someone else? Because we don't play the sanctuary city game, man. We don't play the sanctuary city game. And the sanctuary city game is not about illegal immigrants going to cast a vote. It's not about that. It's not about that. Some people, well, there's plenty of evidence that illegal immigrants are going to vote. Fine, sure. Well, the Supreme Court has never believed you when you said that, and they've taken it on multiple times. So take my word for it. It's not about that. I'll tell you what it is about 7:50 in the morning when we get back from this break.
I can say. Comrades and friends, I might go so far. I should say first, I think it's very impressive and rather encouraging that so many people would come out on such a beautiful evening to discuss and debate such a serious and pressing subject. I should add, though, that as a teacher, I insist that anyone who has been told by the professor that they have to be here leaves now. I will not speak to captive audiences. That's good then. All right. Further to the principles of free inquiry and open debate that go up to make a great university, my view is and will always be that it matters not what you think. Anyone can have thoughts. Many people content themselves with feelings. It matters how you think. So since the case has been so well phrased by my predecessor speakers, I thought I might just begin by a thought experiment, by an argument from analogy, of a case I once put myself in another context. I wrote a book saying that the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes called the Elgin marbles, always pronounced wrongly in this country. It was Lord Elgin, in fact, hard chief, that they had annexed in the 18th century. They didn't make any sense that the sculpture should be separated. It was carved as a unity. That the original crime was the desecration of a great historic culture and a great historic temple, a gross insult to an entire culture and society of the Greeks, the amputation of an organic and aesthetic whole, a theft, a rape, a taking, perpetrated by the strong upon the weak. By the way, this was all done at the same time as the British fleet Her Majesty's fleet was also the military guarantor of the slave trade, of the triangular trade of the Atlantic and the Middle Passage. Now, the points I made on this, how justice could be done, how reparation could be made, how a wrong once inflicted could be restored, made good, I could well buttress by fact and could do so now if I was challenged. Additionally, I suppose most importantly, I said that while not every crime committed in the high days of empire and war and plunder could be repaired, this one could. Restitution could be made. That sculpture had been wrenched from its context. It had been broken up. It had been segregated. It had been injured. It had been damaged in the process. Not everything could be put right, but most of it could. It could be reunited. And the scars and the missing fragments and the injuries would be just part of that great narrative once the healing, once the reunification had been more or less accomplished. Now, I was fascinated. This is a simple case, as I hope you can see. I was very impressed by the
Tell Stimpy we're gonna have to hold it until later. There's only he goes on. There's only 2 minutes left. Yes, right.
$7:54 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. If you just joined us, we're talking about immigration stuff. Seems to be the topic that everyone is talking about right now. And it seems to be the topic that a lot of us were on the same page of just a few years back. And man, I'm just beside myself. Do y'all hate him that much? I mean, I understand if you do. I get it. I might find myself hating Hillary Clinton that much. I'm very honest about that. I got no problem admitting that. I didn't hate Obama. I didn't. I disagree with his policies. I thought he was a good look for America, though. You might disagree. That's fine. We can have a conversation about that. I thought it was a good look for America. Now, when he's sort of pandering to other countries, fine, we can have other conversation. But the point I'm making is I didn't have a personal disdain. I didn't loathe the human being of Barack Obama. I do Hillary Clinton. And again, to qualify that statement, if you just tuned into Real News the first time listening, the reason why I say that is because I've spoken to people who know her on an intimate, personal level, who've told me things that, look, you can't have a Christmas tree every year with crack pipes, pictures of Mao Zedong, baby effigies strung from neck to sternum. You can't have that without some weird stuff going on, okay? What did happen, or so says the Secret Service agent who was at the Christmas party every single year. I didn't dislike Barack Obama. I could understand if you dislike Trump that much. I get it. I just want to know if that's what it is. Speaking of this, Erik says on Facebook, one girl had a good point in this video I just played, saying, we should all be free to live the life we want to live. Yeah, very true. Erik says, but here's my experience living in a foreign country. The vast majority of people I meet or have met were very grateful I took the time to learn a little bit of their language I learned. Now, Erik makes this much more practical, and I absolutely agree with him. He goes on to say, not only that, but there's almost no chance of getting hired. It opens up more opportunity. And in my opinion, it shows some respect to the country that was kind enough to let you enjoy all their resources it provided me during their stay. Making an attempt to learn the language just makes life easier. It just makes sense. Yes, live the life you want. I think all that was being said by Barack Obama, though, is practically speaking, it's probably going to be easier for you to exist in a society where everyone speaks English if you learn how to speak English. Now, nobody that I know, or any well-informed Republican, is not making the claim for a legal obligation to speak English. And I say that I would agree with that, too. I say that because I don't have enough time on a 3-hour program to lay out the entire legal context of why that would be an insane proposition to take on. So much time, so much effort, so much legalese. You'd have to qualify it would just be too much. But practically speaking, to learn the language of a country you're living in, come on, man. But maybe I should just sit back, okay? Maybe I should just sit back and let this whole thing, let the Democrats become cannibals. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just let them eat their own. Headline, freebeacon.com, Sanders and open borders. Can't do it. At least there's one reason. How in the world did I get to the point on this program of calling Bernie Sanders the reasonable Democrat presidential candidate? How did that happen? Because everyone else is diving in that cesspool of progressivism so deep, man. Democrat presidential candidate Bernie Sanders reiterated his long-standing opposition to open borders, saying there's a lot of poverty that the U.S. just simply can't take on from the people all over the world. Goodness gracious, dude. So now, what has happened? Now Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are pitching the same point to people? Do you see where I'm coming from? And these people on the fringe, for some reason, are the ones that are articulating the arguments that Democrats are supposed to follow? What has happened? 7:58. Stick around for news, traffic, weather, all that. Be back with the fantastic guest. Let's see here. Yes, David Welch. A very interesting topic here. David Welch, Knoxville Family Hypnosis. Should be very, very interesting. Stick around for all that. Be right back.
Facebook, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce myself to David. I'm going to leave y'all with this Christopher Hitchens clip about reparations. Should be interesting. Hi.
How's it going?
Very nice to meet you, sir.
You too.
Corinne Henry. Hey, we have a hard break here, so we're not back in until about 9:08. I'm going to take a quick break for a minute. That little black camera right there is our Mevo camera. It runs the Facebook Live. I usually leave them with some interesting audio clip instead of listening to commercials, so I'm going to play Christopher Hitchens in the background here. But we can get back, pretty much just run through, like you and I are just having a conversation for the first time, which we are. But just real general stuff about what the organization's about, what it's like. I'd also like to touch on, just to clarify for people, this is not getting people on a stage and convincing them to be a chicken for, 20 minutes or something like that. No. Right? That's what I'm saying. But that's what I think people, when you hear hypnosis, I think people think some Carnival Cruise Line, magic show stick or something. And then go into what exactly your organization helps people with. John said something in particular, too, about, I'm sure you help smokers, maybe some insomnia people, something like that. And then maybe how people can reach out to you or something like that. So we'll go through that. Are you good for maybe 30 minutes or so?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay.
All right. Get me talking, you might have a hard time shutting me up.
That's all right. It's good for radio. All right, good deal. This is Christopher Hitchens, by the way. Facebook, Christopher Hitchens talking about reparations for slavery. Don't be offended. Or if you are offended, that's fine. I don't care.
I'll be back.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I hope I can say. Comrades and friends, I might go so far. I should say first, I think it's very impressive and rather encouraging that so many people would come out on such a beautiful evening to discuss and debate such a serious and pressing subject. I should add, though, that as a teacher, I insist that anyone who has been told by the professor that they have to be here leaves now. I will not speak to captive audiences. That's good, then. All right. Further to the principles of free inquiry and open debate that goes up to make a great university, my view is, and will always be, that it matters not what you think. Anyone can have thoughts. Many people content themselves with feelings. It matters how you think. So since the case has been so well phrased by my predecessor speakers, I thought I might just begin by a thought experiment, by an argument from analogy, of a case I once put myself in another context. I wrote a book saying that the British Museum should return to Athens the chunks of the sculpture of the Parthenon, sometimes called the Elgin marbles, always pronounced wrongly in this country. It was Lord Elgin, in fact, hard G, that they had annexed in the 18th century. They didn't make any sense that the sculpture should be separated. It was carved as a unity. That the original crime was the desecration of a great historic culture and a great historic temple, a gross insult to an entire culture and society of the Greeks, the amputation of an organic and aesthetic whole, a theft, a rape, a taking, perpetrated by the strong upon the weak. By the way, this was all done at the same time as the British fleet, Her Majesty's fleet, was also the military guarantor of the slave trade, of the triangular trade of the Atlantic and the Middle Passage. Now, the points I made on this, how justice could be done, how reparation could be made, how wrong once inflicted could be restored, made good, I could well buttress by fact and could do so now if I was challenged. Additionally, I suppose most importantly, I said that while not every crime committed in the high days of empire and war and plunder could be repaired, this one could. Restitution could be made. That sculpture had been wrenched from its context It had been broken up, it had been segregated, it had been injured, it had been damaged in the process. Not everything could be put right, but most of it could. It could be reunited. And the scars and the missing fragments and the injuries would be just part of that great narrative once the healing, once the reunification had been more or less accomplished. Now, I was fascinated. This is a simple case, as I hope you can see. I was very impressed by the torrent of bad faith in which I was immediately doused. By their arguments, ladies and gentlemen, you may know them. When people begin to introduce the irrelevant and the non sequitur and the generalization, you know you're onto something. For example, people say, do you mean that every artifact in every museum in Europe should immediately be returned to its country of origin? I think you can tell that that was not what I was saying. But could I get anyone to get off that song? I don't think I could. Do you see the analogy, perhaps, to what we're meant to discuss this evening? I think perhaps you might. There's a constant whine and drone, what I call a white whine, when this subject comes up. People say, what, you mean we have to go back and help the Comanches get there? You know how it goes. A rather nasty combination, actually, of self-pity and self-hatred among white Americans that deserves to be, I think, treated with great scorn. I was told, well, what about the Babylonians? I said, well, the Babylonians are not going to come and make a claim. The stuff from Babylon in the British Museum is probably best off where it is. The Rosetta Stone and the pharaonic material there is probably best off where it is. More people will see it. And there are no pharaonic Egyptians to press a claim either. Why are you mentioning this when there's a real case before you that could be made, and a real injustice that could be repaired? I think I know why. I think I feel the itchings and prickings of a bad conscience behind this kind and mode of argument. Then it was said, well, didn't the great noble Lord Elgin actually sort of rescue the sculpture by stealing it and using it first to decorate his private home and then to make a fortune by selling it? Wouldn't it have maybe it have been worse off if it had stayed where it was? Well, some of the sculpture that stayed in Athens was very badly treated and has been badly knocked about. And I heard it said this year in an argument about the Confederate flag, no, last year, excuse me, in an argument about the Confederate battle flag in Camp.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah? How long have you been in this field?
I opened my business here a couple of years ago. I've been doing it since about 87 or so.
Oh, yeah? All this will probably, they say don't do radio off air, but whatever. I think some of the best stuff happens off air. Plus Facebook gets a full dose of it. So I'll probably ask you all this stuff on air too, but anyways, yeah, some housekeeping stuff. You don't have to use those headphones if you don't want to. If you do, that little white knob's your volume. And these microphones, by the way, they're super one directional, so don't feel bad about getting right up on them. Aside from that, yeah, we go till about 8:18, then we take a break, and then till right at about like 8:30 on the dot, and then we'll be good.
All right.
All right. Cool. Oh, and by the way, is there a website I can direct people to or anything?
Knoxville Family Hypnosis.com.
Easy enough. Nice. Can I get this number out on air too?
Sure.
Okay. Right. Cool.
Often and repeatedly.
Good deal. I just never know if that's like a personal cell phone number, if it's an office line. I have so many guests in here. Sometimes I think one time I actually inadvertently guessed someone's personal cell phone number out. And I didn't mean to, but.
CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
9:07 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mr. Henry, host of this program that is entitled The Real News. That Crown Plaza call number, you're going to want to hang off on probably to the 9 o'clock hour. The reason being is we have a great guest in studio now and another great guest in studio at the 8:30 segment. For this segment right now, it's about 8:30. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and tell our audience the organization you're with as well.
Hey, good morning. My name's David Welch, and I'm with Knoxville Family Hypnosis here in Knoxville.
All right, David. Let me just start out by getting this out of the way here, okay? Because I would believe the common misconception about what it is you do is this is akin to, say, Ross said it best outside. I'm going to steal this thunder from her. That you're going to hypnotize me to be a Democrat, right? That this is sort of a parlor trick that you might find on a Caribbean cruise line or something, where you get someone up there and you hypnotize them to be a chicken for 2.5 minutes so your buddies can make it a viral video and make fun of you later. Obviously, this is not what we're talking about this morning. Is that correct?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I'd probably have an easier time making you a chicken than I would making you a Democrat.
I would think so. That's awesome.
You know, one of the things about hypnosis is I can't really make you do anything that you want to do or that you don't want to do. You know, when people come in, like say you came in to see me that you wanted to stop smoking. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the first things I'd ask you is, do you really want to quit? Or is your wife making you come in? You know, and if you don't want to quit, you know, your chances of success are very, very low.
All right, so before we get into the actual minutia of how you help the people, what the procedure looks like, the phone calls. By the way, if you want to follow along at the very beginning here, I'll do this multiple times throughout the interview. It's KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com, KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com, or this phone number here if you want to just set something up for yourself, 865-333-4632. That's 865-333-4632. And I like this little tag here right underneath saying, from David Welch here saying, I simply don't see anyone without first doing a phone consultation. So let me ask this. What is the version, again, the common misconception that hypnosis, you take the pocket watch out and you're getting very sleepy, that type of thing. What's the difference between that and what it is that you're doing?
That's actually from something from the late 1700s, early 1800s. It's a form of induction of getting you into hypnosis. It was called eye fixation. Anything that you've ever seen about hypnosis from the movies, TV, is going to be completely wrong. You know, there's no basis of fact to it whatsoever. Every now and then I'll do that when I have kids in. They've seen it on TV and they expect it. So I'll dangle something in front of their eyes and say, okay, your eyes are really heavy now. Close your eyes. And then I'll quit and actually do the real hypnosis.
Yeah. How long have you been into this field?
I started doing hypnosis sometime around 1987. Started a business here in Knoxville just a couple of years ago.
Gotcha. All right, so now let's get into a little bit of what it is that you can actually help people with. From the website here, again, KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com, what can hypnosis do with you, for you, rather? Are you frustrated because you want to stop smoking but just can't seem to do it? Does it upset you that no matter how many times you diet, you just can't put off the weight? Do you suffer from chronic pain? Is it difficult to let go of habits? A little bit of answering of what you can do. Speak a little bit more about those particular things.
Pretty much, unless we can stick you in a machine and take a look at you and see it, hypnosis can help it. Even then, I can probably help you speed up some of that sort of recovery too. Pain relief, bad habits, behavior modification, you know, getting you to change your behavior. Everything. I can't think of anything that I couldn't help you with.
And this question here, I'm not asking necessarily to break down, say, the neurochemistry behind what actually happens, or even for that matter, just sort of behavioral modification. What is it that's actually going on? Say if you have a successful patient that came in and say he was a smoker or something, and all of a sudden he stopped smoking. Is it his subconscious convincing his conscious? What's actually going on there?
Everything that you are, everything that you think you are, is your subconscious has built a model of what it believes that you are inside of yourself. And it protects that model jealously. So if the model has something stuck on you, say, your subconscious thinks that you're a smoker, well, it'll do everything it can to protect that. And it'll do everything that it can to keep you from smoking, or from quitting smoking. Hypnosis really just puts your brain sort of in a programming state where we can start to change that model. And if we can take the model that believes that you're a smoker, change it to believing that you're not a smoker, your subconscious just does all the work.
And you may have just answered this question here by that statement, but I suppose, is that why it's so important for you to, you just said before that you have to believe for yourself that you actually want to change. Why is that such an important element?
The main job of your subconscious is to protect yourself. And it won't let you do stuff that you don't want to do, that it thinks is going to be injurious.
So let me ask this then: the procedure that you actually go through when you're in your office. Let's say I call you for the first time. Again, that phone number for people here is 865-333-4632. If you want to call David, he'll do a phone consultation. What does that phone consultation sound like? Is it just sort of meet and greet, get to know what you want to fix, that type of thing?
A lot of that, just finding out what's going on with you. Do you? Well, I like to use smoking because that's just so common.
Yeah, right.
Do you smoke? How much do you smoke? How long have you smoked? Why are you smoking? What seems to trigger your smoking? Are you smoking because you're bored? Are you smoking because you have anxiety? If you're smoking because you're anxious, maybe I need to treat the anxiety before I start to look at the smoking.
Interesting question here. Bob in Facebook's wanting to know if he can curb his foul language. That's actually an interesting follow-up. Is there anything that's sort of off limits, off the table, something that you would think, well, there's not a way I could possibly help with that?
No, I tend to look at everything as a habit, and hypnosis is great to get you to change habits. If you're using foul language, you're not thinking about it, it's just coming out. Yeah, we could probably change that.
Now, again, I would suppose it's not just, again, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably not just the hypnosis that's going to be an immediate instant cure-all. I would suppose that's coupled with other practical things in your life as well, too. The hypnosis may just be one square or one element to that solution-driven type thing. Is that correct?
Sure. I mean, you've got to do a little bit of work, too.
Right.
But hypnosis, when it works really, really quickly. I get people all the time that come in to quit smoking, and in one session, they're a non-smoker.
Nice. So what does that process look like? Let's say I've given you a phone call. I want to come in, help me with, I don't know, curb smoking, or help me with not cussing anymore, or help me from suffering from chronic pain. It's very interesting. Follow up later. It seems to be a mind over matter type thing, but the process itself, the actual procedure. Let's say I come in to your physical location. What does it look like from the second that I'm in your office till I leave later on?
Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sit down at my table, and we're going to have a long talk. I need to get to know you, have to build some rapport. Most people won't let you poke around in their brain too much unless they trust you a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're going to have to get to know me some. I'm going to have to figure out some stuff about you so I can figure out how to structure your hypnosis. If I don't know what you need, I can't help you.
Yeah, and the actual hypnosis process itself, I don't know if that's like an industry secret or something you can't tell us on airwaves or something. If I'm sitting down, am I laying down on one of those benches or whatever? Are you just talking to me softly? How does it work, the hypnosis process? Do I actually go under some sense of slumber or something? You get what I'm saying?
Well, ordinarily I have you sit in a recliner. I want to get you good and comfortable, a position that you're able to become really relaxed in. You're going to close your eye. Hypnosis is different for everybody. Some people are going to feel like that. Some people won't remember anything I said at the end of it. Some people will remember everything. Some people are going to feel like they're sort of dreamy where they're drifting in and out. But, that's just how you do hypnosis.
Now, I don't know the actual literature on far if there's been any studies or anything done. I do know, however, there's been a multitude of studies done on something as simple as, say, a placebo, right? Mm-hmm. Something could become psychosomatic that if you believe that it's working, necessarily it is working for you. A lot of people might say that that's religion in general. There's sort of a psychosomatic response to believing there's some metaphysical entity that's going to hold you accountable later on, therefore you live a better life. Convinced that is something that may not be real or otherwise. Do you have any type of situation where you could say this amount of people have actually been cured by it, or you just said you've had people in one session that have stopped smoking after that first session? How effective is this process?
In the mid-1800s, there was a guy named James Esdale. He was a doctor in India. Started learning some of the stuff that Mesmer had started doing in the end of the 1700s. And he was doing surgery on the Indians. He had a clinic. At the time, the survival rate for surgery was about 50%, maybe a little bit worse. But, most people just didn't even survive their surgery. He started using hypnosis as an anesthesia, and his survival rate dropped to where only 5% of the people that were undergoing surgery were dying. So, that's a huge increase, and that's in the middle of the 1800s. There's all sorts of studies. The question of whether or not hypnosis works is about 30 years old. Right now, we know it works. We're just trying to figure out why.
Sure, I hear you. Yeah, there's a multitude of things in the scientific community where people are trying to just figure out that answer to the question of why. And it's an interesting thing. I don't mean to put you too much on the spot here with this question, but at least being in East Tennessee, I don't know, they consider us the buckle of the Bible Belt. And you may know where I'm going with this, right? Have you had any, I don't want to say backlash, but have you had any questions pertaining to, does this enter the spiritual realm at all, right? Are you connecting with something that might be counter to my Christian philosophy? You may have never encountered that at all. I'm actually just wondering what that might have been like.
There are people that do some of the metaphysical stuff in hypnosis. I'm a consulting hypnotist. I only work in the stuff that's quantifiable, that I can see results. So smoking, pain relief, stuff like that. The more metaphysical stuff that you would be talking about, I don't really deal with that at all.
We got to hit this break coming up. You're going to stick around for the second segment. This is David Welch, Knoxville Family Hypnosis. The website is easy to remember. It's just knoxvillefamilyhypnosis.com. Again, the phone number is 865-333-4632. That's 865-333-4632. It is a free consultation just to get started with this program as well. We have a few questions from Facebook that I want to ask when we get back here. Norm's asking that he's heard it's been used for PTSD, people suffering from PTSD, or even survivors of trauma or abuse. That'd be an interesting question to follow up on. And also, Kelly has an interesting Facebook seeming that it's being indicated that there's a different experience for each individual, what that might be like. So 8:18 in the morning, hit this first break. Be right back with more from David Welch.
That's a good song. All right, good stuff. This next segment tends to be a little bit shorter than the first one, but let me know too if there's anything that we're not touching on that you want to make sure to touch on there too. How long have you been operating in Knoxville?
A couple of years.
Okay.
Before then, mostly just working with family and friends and stuff like that.
Is there are there many other practitioners in this area?
There's a handful. There's one guy that's up in Clinton. His name's Ron. Is probably one of the best hypnotists that I know. Probably one of the best hypnotists in the United States.
Really?
We have the National Guild of Hypnotists. It's sort of like the American Medical Association.
Okay.
And I bet Ron's written well over half of the training material.
That might be a question to ask when you come back too.
He's written almost all of the stuff about pain relief that we're doing now.
Right. Yeah, I might ask you a question then of how do you go about go through the training for something like this? I assume someone could just like walk off the street, watch you do it one time, and all of a sudden replicate that. You know, I mean.
Well, there's no regulation in Tennessee. You could call yourself a hypnotist and go into business tomorrow if you want.
Well, yeah, but as far as whether you'd be effective or not, I'm sure that's a totally different thing, right? Did you who's the basketball coach right now? What's his name? Barnes? Is that right? I don't know. He was just offered a gig, I think at UCLA or something. I think somebody on Facebook was wondering if you hypnotized the coach to stay here or not.
No, I see a lot of athletes.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What for?
Performance you know what yips is?
No.
It's this weird thing where the catchers lose the ability to throw their ball back to the pitcher.
Weird.
Hall of Fame baseball players have lost their career over it.
Seriously?
Yeah, and it's just this weird thing that shows up one day.
What does it mean, like throw it back accurately or something?
Yeah, they'll spike it in the middle of the ground, or they'll throw it over his head.
Get out.
They can throw it everywhere except back to the pitcher.
Get out.
And I'm probably one of the few people around that can treat that.
That is wild. I've never heard of that.
I've got people that come in like from Kentucky and Florida.
What's it called? Yips?
Yips.
That's crazy. No, that's fascinating to me. Yeah, I'm gonna. Is it YIP? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. State of extreme nervousness that can cause a golfer too to miss easy putts.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mayo Clinic studied, huh? Interesting. Involuntary wrist spasms that occur most commonly in golfers, baseball players. That's crazy. Cricket players, darts, baseball. Awesome. That's interesting. All right, I'll ask about some of that.
To pack your bag, so quit your crying. Know you're guilty. Had me in a trap. Now you've lost your just quit trying. 'Cause you must have had me in no time.
8:22. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Who's that, Roz?
Set it off.
Oh, all right. I was wrong.
Who'd you think it was?
I don't remember. That's what I thought you were going to tell me.
You don't remember?
Not them, no. There's the one, the band that sings that dance, you know that one?
There's a lot of songs like that. I don't know.
You saying it so.
Dance, dance.
You saying it so accurately, Mr. Henry. How do I not know what you're talking about? Oh my goodness. Hey, by the way, right now we're joined by David Welch. Website is Knoxville Family. Sorry, KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com. That's KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com. 865-333-4632. 865-333-4632. Free phone consultation. He was just telling me about the situation where he's been able to help people with one of the only people that's been able to help baseball players in particular with this situation. I'm actually reading from MayoClinic.org right now, something called yips. I'd never heard of this before. People that follow baseball or golf or darts or cricket probably might have heard of this. Apparently, yips is the involuntary wrist spasm that occur most commonly when golfers are trying to putt. However, yips can also affect people playing other sports such as cricket, darts, and baseball. And you were telling me a second ago that the baseball players just sort of lose the ability to throw it back to the pitcher. They can throw it to anybody else, but not the pitcher.
Yeah.
That's wild.
It's crazy. They don't know what happens. Sometimes it just shows up and it goes away. Sometimes it shows up and it stays forever. Like I said, Hall of Fame baseball players have lost their career over it.
That's crazy.
Or you're in left field now.
Right.
You're no longer the catcher.
Right. No, exactly. And I guess it's the same thing where my extreme sense of nervousness comes over me when I try and read these taglines some of the times in the morning. You know, the Talk Radio 92.3 in the AM. One of those things. No, I don't remember the AM 760, but there it is. Anyways, WETR. That's a wild thing, and it really is just brought on by the extreme sort of sense of nervousness that I suppose what's in the forefront of your mind is constantly got to hit this pitcher, but you're not being overwhelmed by the thought if you throw it to first base. But you can help these people allegedly, right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Hypnosis may be one of the very few successful ways of treating it.
And we were talking. I was asking this individual before off air about, are you the only person in town that's doing this? There's another guy in Clinton or something else that's on the forefront of dealing with pain management, you said. But I was asking, what does the training look like for something like this? Because I would suppose someone might presume that you couldn't just I guess you could walk off the street and start your own clinic, but you may not be very effective at it. What does the training process look like? You said there's a national guild and everything like that, right?
Yeah, the National Guild of Hypnotists. It's sort of like the American Medical Association. The biggest difference being is the AMA gave the government a big bunch of money and said we'd like to be a monopoly, so only we can tell you who's a doctor and who's not. The National Guild, we're not government related. But yeah, there's training, continuing education you have to go through to keep your certification with the Guild, various levels of training. So.
Hey, Ray's saying on Facebook here. Ray's saying, can you hypnotize the NPC to be transparent to the public about the ongoing Recode Knoxville event?
There's some things that even I can't do.
I was going to say, David, if you're not up to date on that, you may know or may not, that Recode Knoxville thing, the rezoning of all 74,000 plots of land in the city of Knoxville. Ray wants to know if you can go to the city council and just hypnotize all of them to just tell everybody in the city what's actually going on. That might be a bit larger than he can take on. But Norm did say a second ago, he's heard that hypnosis can be used for those suffering from PTSD or survivors of trauma and abuse. You know anything about that?
Yes, I see a lot of PTSD people. I see a lot of veterans. It's really good for a lot of stuff like that. Pain treatment, phantom limb pain, PTSD. I'm more than happy to see that. And if you're a veteran and you have something like that, I'll offer you a discount for that.
Do you ever get any pushback from, say, psychiatrists or something? And I only say that, man, is I don't have any. I'm not trying to disparage the field of psychiatry. I'm not. I just don't have a good feeling about the field of psychiatry. It seems more often than not you go into a psychiatrist. Again, if you're a psychiatrist, I'm sorry. Please call and tell me I'm wrong. But it seems that you go into the field of psychiatry and you tell them something's wrong and you ask for some particular pill or whatever and they're shoving 5 pills in your face. I'm just telling you. To solve a problem. You ever get pushback from psychiatrists like you're doing something wrong, you're not considering the field of science, you're not doing the proper method that's actually going to be solving the problem?
Actually, I get a client sent to me from psychiatrists.
Do you really?
And, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic.
And it's a little bit back and forth. If somebody came in and there was something that was a psychological problem that I wouldn't want to treat, if you have clinical depression or you're schizophrenic, I won't see you unless your psychiatrist is present.
Really?
And if I catch something like that and I see the signs of it, I think, well, maybe you want to see a psychiatrist before you come in here and work with me with hypnosis.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Honestly, I don't mean to sound too flabbergasted on air, but seriously, I figured it would be a constant point of contention there. But the fact that you guys are working across with each other is just it's just fantastic for me to hear here. Kelly also says, too, true, but he's saying that it's a different experience for each individual. Do you find that, let's say you have 2 smokers that come in, is it going to be a different experience, obviously, for each smoker?
Oh, yeah. Hypnosis is completely personalized. There's no feeling of hypnosis. I can't. If you feel like this, you know that you're hypnotized. It's going to be different for everybody.
Let's say there is someone that's, and the PTSD thing sort of grabs me as well, and depression is something that, especially in this day and age, there's so many versions of depression. I sometimes wonder this with the autism spectrum as well, too, of what's the likelihood of the autism spectrum actually growing as opposed to autism now is this all-encompassing, all-including type definition that maybe we're just defining more people with what autism on the spectrum used to mean. I guess with that being said, the person that's dealing with depression right now, that has done for a very long time, maybe at the end of the ropes. I actually heard on a local program the other day, somebody called in and was talking about something entitled ASMR, and somebody called in afterwards. It's auditory sensory meridian response, right? And someone was calling in later saying, I've tried everything for depression. He didn't mention hypnosis, but tried everything for depression. And oddly enough, the ASMR thing is something that worked for me. If someone is dealing with depression, PTSD, or traumatic experience before, how would they go about seeking you out? Would they need files transferred over from their current clinician that's going to help you out? Would they have to do that first? Is it just a phone consultation? How does that go?
Yeah, we'd cover all that during the phone consultation. Sometimes I actually want to get a referral. Sometimes I'm going to need your doctor's permission to see you, just depending on what's going on with you. I try not to step on other people's feet.
Again, if this is something that you want to try out, KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com is the website. Phone number here is 865-333-4632. That's 865-333-4632. On the way out here, we only have about 60 seconds until this break comes up, and then we got my buddy Erik in the back there talking about civil asset forfeiture. If there's one thing that you, one of the audience members of Real News here, terrestrial or all our social media or otherwise, to take away from this regarding hypnosis, regarding what you do, what would that be?
You need to relax. Stress is probably the number one problem in the United States right now. No matter what you come and see me, I'm going to treat you for stress. If you come in for smoking, it's going to be stress and anxiety, weight loss and anxiety. Figure out something that you can do to help you relax. If I only treated 95% of my clients for absolutely nothing but stress and anxiety, most of them would take care of the problem that they're coming to see me by themselves.
What if someone came in that's, say, the producer of a talk radio program that says that they're dealing with stress because of the morning show host? Would you tell the truth and call them a liar, or would you actually try and help them out with their situation?
It depends on how much money they have.
That's for you, Roz. It depends on how much money they have. That's a good response.
I'll come see you this afternoon.
Exactly. Hey, 8:30 in the morning. Hit this news break right now. Again, one last time, KnoxvilleFamilyHypnosis.com. That phone number if you want to talk to David Welch. Free consultation over the phone, 865-333-4632. 865-333-4632. David, thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Hey, great. Good to meet you.
Hit this break right now. Come back with our buddy, Erik. How you doing back there, buddy? I'm going to make sure you pronounce your last name, Yeah, he's saying it right now. I can't hear you. All right, we'll be right back.
Thanks, David.
Hey, I'm glad you had me on.
Yeah, man, it's a good time. And if you have any events, or I don't know if your group has any events or anything, but if you're, had like a crazy breakthrough or something, there's a phone number that thing we usually have hung up right there, rather. Or is it hang? Either way, the phone number for this studio is 865-888-TALK. It's just 888-8255. So if you remember that, if you have anything you want to pitch to our audience real quick, you don't have to clear, just give Roz a call on that number and say, hey, give me 2, 3, 5 minutes on air real quick. I just have this event coming up. I have this breakthrough. I just want to tell the audience members about it. Good to go or whatever.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Good meeting you, man.
You too.
How's it going?
I'm going great. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Erik.
David.
Nice to meet you, David.
What's up, buddy?
Grant.
How you doing, man?
Man.
What's up, dude? You been alright?
Yeah, doing well.
I'm usually the best looking one in the studio, man, and then you gotta come, kill all this for me. Alright, so what's the focus today? We got a subcommittee meeting? How's this going?
For the legislative year, everything's over.
Okay.
For civil asset forfeiture, so we can talk about that. Really, I mean, we had some huge successes. Like, you remember going there with us in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had 2 legislators sign on to our bill at
that
really? Time with Tillman Goins. This year, we've had 40.
40?
40.
Dang, dude.
Yeah. So that's kind of how things have changed.
All right.
We could talk about the reforms that have happened, too, in Tennessee. But, even though we have no new legislation this year, I mean, that progress.
All right.
And then if you want to, if you think it's worthwhile, we could even talk about what some of the other states are doing. For instance, Arkansas just enacted criminal convictions this year. And, you have about 100 sponsors in South Carolina on a criminal conviction and also equitable sharing restrictions.
That was my thing. Honestly, bro, the criminal convictions don't mean anything unless you get rid of that equitable sharing.
Yeah, and so that was the strategy this year. We changed things up. We said, okay, let's go lighter. Let's ditch criminal convictions and go after equitable sharing. And, we could even talk about the pushback on that because law enforcement were telling legislators, like, if you guys restrict equitable sharing at all, what will happen is we will get kicked out of the program and we will not be able to enforce sex trafficking.
So that was Nathan told me that before, and I couldn't figure out the connection.
No, and there is no connection. They never provided anyone with document evidence. I mean, you have 9 states right now that have restrictions on equitable sharing. All 9 have done their restrictions since 2015. With the exception of New Mexico, all of them still participate in federal equitable sharing. That was by New Mexico's choice. They put something in their law that the funds have to go into the general fund for equitable sharing, and that is against DOJ guidelines. So it wasn't the restriction that kicked them out, it was that clause.
All right, so it is true then to say that if they do away with equitable sharing, what is it going to kick them out of?
It doesn't, though.
Okay.
That's completely untrue. The only instance that it happened was New Mexico, but the reason it happened in New Mexico is because they said the DOJ funds have to go into the state's
so they're still
general
right?
fund.
Okay, okay. Now that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they're basically taking federal funding,
and then they would use it on education or something.
Yeah.
And so the DOJ is like, that's against their guidelines, so you can't participate. But the funny thing is even though New Mexico has done that, just this year they passed another law restricting equitable sharing even further.
Wow.
Because local communities were still claiming that they had a right to participate.
Gotcha.
So like the city of Albuquerque, and they were like, no, you don't.
All right, so if Tennessee refuses to participate in equitable sharing, they could still cooperate with the FBI if there was a sex trafficking scheme going on.
Absolutely. There's no evidence at all. I mean, you think about this. So like when you have states like Nebraska and Arkansas and Ohio that have restrictions, like these are not pro-sex trafficking states.
Right.
Like there are any to begin with. But then also let's take the illegal immigration argument, which they
That was the other one, right?
Okay, Arizona, New Mexico, they have passed restrictions on equitable sharing. Arizona is not some state that's like, hey, you know what we need more right now? We need immigration.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I mean, this is just made up stuff.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Like, it was a learning process. Like, we learned a lot more.
Well, let's do it this way then, man, because I think this will be good. We'll talk about what's happened, the differences between the change of strategy, or rather the differences in the people that signed up from 2016 till now, and then the difference in the change of strategy. And then I want to go into this article from Chris Butler, Tennessee Star. This is coming from Martin Daniel, allegedly.
Yes.
Tennessee legislators scared to fight civil asset forfeiture abuse. I think that's going to lead pretty perfectly into what we're talking about of why are they scared? Well, dude, they're scared because police officers come up to them saying, like, you're going to have sex traffickers all over your state. Which, honestly, bro, it's an asinine argument, but I think it goes a little bit further than that, dude. If there's a police officer that's making that argument to a legislator, bro, part of me wants to say that it's not just disingenuous. I think it's, I don't know, borderline immoral. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like seriously borderline immoral. If an officer is seriously making an argument to a legislator knowing full well that there's no way in the world that you should or convince anyone that if you stop equitable sharing, which I'll explain Facebook later if you don't know what that is, we'll explain that fully later on in the show. If you stop equitable sharing, all of a sudden that's going to cause me to not pursue illegal immigration. If you know that that's not true and you're still trying to convince a legislator otherwise, the only plausible thing you could assert otherwise is we just want to keep our free money. We just want to keep people's money because it's however many tens of millions of dollars we're getting per year, bro. And it's just like, maybe it's not tens of millions, but whatever. You know what I'm saying, man.
I mean, it's up there. We can even go over those numbers too.
But Sherry Volunteer, you know Sherry Volunteer, right? She came on the show yesterday, man, and the Sherry Volunteers want to make these statements, and we had a nice back and forth about this, but she made the statement that there's no such thing as a good cop, which I believe to be patently untrue.
I would agree with you.
I think it's axiomatic on its face untrue. With that being said, though, I don't think there needs to be any other fodder to lend credence to that argument. Mm-hmm. And if we have something like this going on where we have police officers swearing to legislators, something that is untrue, that we're not going to be able to pursue sex traffickers, well, it makes her argument look a lot more reasonable now that there's not a good cop out there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we could talk about, when the opposition comes out, we're talking about sheriffs, we're talking about police chiefs, and we're talking about DAs. I don't know how much really the rank and file officers really dealing with this issue. You know, I mean, when you have the Judicial Drug Task Force, yeah, those guys are probably pretty involved in civil asset forfeiture.
Right.
Oh, did I gotta put it on?
You don't have to if you want to. They're right there with you.
Is it better?
And by the way, yeah, for you it might be. Just so you can see or hear how much you're coming up with these mics. They're super one directional, man, so you might have to get right up on it.
Yeah.
That moves around.
We should talk about when you used to go up there.
Hey! Hey!
I was trying to make fun of this band off air, but I can't really. Is it either this band or Smash Mouth? One of the two. Apparently their drummer is one of the most prolific songwriters in Hollywood right now. I want to make.
I don't know about that. This is Len.
Oh, okay, no, so it's not them. I think it's Smash Mouth, which is another band I like to make fun of. But apparently those members of that band.
Smash Mouth is cool.
Okay,
all right.
yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Smash Mouth is. Yeah.
They were good enough for Shrek. Okay, so it's good enough for me.
I guess that's the standard now. Anyways, hey, usually I'm the best looking person in this entire studio, maybe in this entire building. Unfortunately, my stock has went down a little bit because my buddy Erik's in the studio. Hey,
don't talk about me like that.
Hey, Erik, tell them who you are, what you're about, man.
Sure. So my name's Erik Wiatr. I'm with the Campaign to End Civil Asset Forfeiture in Tennessee, and we have been working on this issue since late 2015, trying to bring meaningful reform to our state.
Hey, you want to use this platform to promote your other stuff too? I mean, what you actually do, or we not get into that?
I mean, we can. I mean, I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah.
I'm on the board for Friends of Literacy, which is a charity group. I mean, that's some of the other things.
Tell them how to get in touch with the real estate stuff. This is not a real estate program, man. I'm just saying if you're looking into the house stuff, hit this guy up. He's genuine. He's moral. He's a good guy. He'll do you right. But let him know how to get in touch with you.
Sure. So you can look me up online. That's Erik, Erik, Wiatr, Wiatr. My website's eriktnrealestate.com, and that's my email address too, the eriktnrealestate@gmail.com.
All right, so why we have Erik in this morning, this is how I really got started involved in doing a bit of lobbying effort myself, working with politics in a local level. There's actually, I said before you got in here too, it was our Liberty meetings that kind of spawned, it was the genesis of this program entitled Real News Now that we used to meet on Tuesday nights there, I'm pretty sure. Let me do a quick 30-second recap of what civil asset forfeiture even is. If you're stumbling upon real news, if you're driving through the state, you just caught this program. Civil asset forfeiture is not something that is unique to Tennessee, clearly. And I'll say this right now, it is not a new issue. All right, I said this yesterday, maybe it needs some more explaining. I hope it doesn't, but civil asset forfeiture it's a legal concept that has been working through the systems for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The concept itself, maybe not defined as civil asset forfeiture, has always been a thing. Now, how to properly codify that in each particular state has been an ongoing, difficult procedure. But civil asset forfeiture has always been around. What is civil asset forfeiture? All right. On the one hand, you have something called criminal asset forfeiture. So if Erik and I are driving around in our cars, we're going to get arrested for this later on. It's going to destroy our reputations on air. If we're driving around in our cars and we have a bunch of cocaine in the car, they charge us with possession of cocaine. They take the cocaine. They take the car. That's criminal asset forfeiture. That is not what we're arguing against, correct? Correct. We are arguing for criminal asset forfeiture. We're arguing for charge me with a crime first and then take my stuff later. That seems to be the proper process. If you don't know, though, if you're listening for the first time, there is a thing called civil asset forfeiture, whereby almost solely, and I'm stretching a little bit, but almost solely based upon the police officer's discretion that's at the site, if they feel that your property, your car, your yacht, your home, usually it's the money, the cash that you have on hand. If they feel based upon their own discretion that money might be used in furthering some criminal element, some conspiracy, buying drugs, whatever else, based upon their discretion, they can take that property from you. They can seize that property from you without charging the individual, you in this case, with a crime. Then what ends up happening is normally in criminal asset forfeiture, you are innocent until proven guilty. If you are not proven guilty, you get your stuff back. But the state has the burden to prove that you are guilty of the crime they're charging you with. However, in civil asset forfeiture, your property is considered guilty of the alleged crime that has not happened yet until you go to, this is all true, man. This is not Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Your property is considered guilty of the alleged crime that has not actually taken place until you go to the courthouse and prove the innocence of your own property. This is a very real thing. Pretty decent summation, right?
Yes.
All right, so 2016, Erik and I went up there. We had a few pieces that we were trying to push. What do we have? Two legislators that we got to send them?
Yeah, so we had a bill that was based on New Mexico's law. It required a criminal conviction and had a restriction on equitable sharing. We went with New Mexico's law because they were really the first state in the nation in 2015 to, break down this barrier and actually make meaningful reform happen. So yes, as Grant pointed out, at that time, we had 2 legislators sign on to the bill, and the bill died in committee and just in flames. And then fast forward to this year, Martin Daniel. Well, that was Tillman Goins who did the 2016 bill, but Martin Daniel this year introduced a meaningful reform bill, and it hasn't passed this year yet. It's not dead, but at this point, we've had 40 legislators sign on to it. So, to go from 2 to 40 legislators, that is progress in that sense for sure.
All right, so equitable sharing is a word that we're going to throw around quite a bit here, and I just wanted to define this now before we move forward too much. Equitable sharing is this idea. Let me just say it this way, okay? Some states actually require conviction before prosecutors can permanently seize assets and don't allow law enforcement agencies to keep these forfeited proceeds. Now, equitable sharing creates a way for police to bypass these strict state laws. Again, one more time. Equitable sharing creates a way for state police to bypass the strict state laws. Through adoption, the feds can prosecute the case under looser federal forfeiture procedures and then return up to 80% of the proceeds back to the local cops. This allows police to circumvent conviction requirements at the local level and collect forfeiture funds even if the state goes on along. Okay, so a state says you have to require a criminal conviction first before you take the people's stuff. The police officers then say, all right, well, here's what we can do. We'll just charge them with a federal crime. We'll get the feds involved. They will seize the assets, and then they'll give us 80% back. We're not charging them at the state level. The feds are doing it for us. That's equitable sharing. Now, back to what you said before. We had 2 before we had 40 this time around. What in the world has changed, dude?
So I think having new legislators has been a factor, but I think also, from the communication, you remember, I think now the legislators are really getting sick and tired of civil asset forfeiture.
Tired of hearing about it or tired of it actually happening?
Tired of it happening.
Okay.
They want to do something about it. In 2018, they did pass some reform that took steps in the right direction, but didn't solve it. Nothing with a criminal conviction, no restriction on equitable sharing.
Yeah, and we still obviously had a few holdouts. And last time I heard around, we're going to get to the whole point of why we're bringing Erik back in here and again. But legislative season, we're done with this as far as civil assets.
For this year.
Next
year, we're definitely coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. But where we left right now, and don't get too much into why we're left with the situation right now, because that's the whole point of bringing you on. I want to hit now in just a minute. But where we left to past where we didn't.
So this year we're going to have no new reforms. What has happened recently is we've had some reporting bills passed in 2016, 17, and 18, and then just last year they did some modest steps.
All right. Do you have any stats, by the way, too? If someone's listening right now thinking, this isn't a problem, y'all,
yes.
Police need this, okay, they need this. Do you have any stats to indicate the median amount that's seized or how much is seized or things of that nature?
Sure. Right now in Tennessee, if you go to 2018, we had 7,000 cases of this in Tennessee. So it's happening. We're talking millions of dollars. The average amount that we're looking at, that number is somewhere in between 2,200 to 2,300. Now
per seizure, you mean, right?
Per case.
Okay.
Yeah, per case. In the Institute for Justice has done a report on Tennessee, and they said the median is $502. So one of the arguments that law enforcement is saying they need civil forfeiture is to stop the drug cartels, right? But when you're talking about amounts of $2,200 and $500, you're not stopping El Chapo in Mexico.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Every single time El Chapo was pushing away, he had 30,000 different employees that were moving one key at a time. That's what was going on. It's more efficient that way, Erik. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You have 30,000 people because it's easier to keep track of 30,000 people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep 30,000 people silent. It's easier to do that than with 3 people.
Yeah.
So 30,000 people moving one key at a time. Obviously, I'm being facetious excuse here. The point that I'm making is if you're seizing $500, it's probably someone to go buy a lawnmower off of Facebook Marketplace.
Well, here's even crazier stuff too that a lot of people we didn't learn about this this year. There are 353 cases of building materials being taken, drywall, lumber. There was cases of musical instruments being taken.
What?
There was even one, if you look at, there's the civil rights implications of there was a commission that did a report. There was even a case an attorney talked about where a little kid's piggy bank was taken, broken into so they could grab $147. Yeah, it's on record. I mean, that's kind of, and we're talking like camping equipment. I mean, there's all these cases.
Dude, can I ask you in all sincerity? I want to tease what we're about to... How long do I have with you, by the way? Can I push you past 9?
As long as you... Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, this is getting too good, man. In all sincerity, what possibly could you use drywall for in a criminal conspiracy?
Remodel your police department's bathroom.
That would be...
That's a possibility.
Conspiracy for the police to take drywall from an individual and just go remodel the bathroom. No, I'm being for real there, Eric. Seriously, if I'm a police officer and I'm trying to somehow justify I need to take lumber or drywall or something, what was the conception? What was that being used for? That you're going to remodel somebody's home without them paying for it, or?
I'm not sure. Again, I mean, as you mentioned previously, I mean, this can go based solely on the suspicion of the police officer.
It's just so baffling to me, man. I suppose it was a situation where they pulled up our car and they had a bunch of cash and they decided to take the musical instruments anyways. I don't envision Bob Dylan out there serenading some lady and all of a sudden that's going to lead to a criminal conviction. I don't follow along. I don't know. We got to hit this break coming up. If you think that was bad with the civil asset forfeiture stuff of them taking a little kid's piggy bank for, what'd you say, $100?
$147.
$147. Let's find this kid, man. Let's start a GoFundMe for this. I can get you more than $147. Seriously. Do we know this kid's name? Let's make a GoFundMe for this kid's name. Everybody, there's at least 147 people listening to this program right now. If all of us donate at least $1, the three of us here, we got $3. You give us $1?
I can do $1.
Gross and I got at least $2 on it too. All right, so we need the other amount of that money to get this back to this kid. Here's what we're coming back from after this breakdown, pulling us in the 9 o'clock hour. If you thought all that was bad enough, here's the justification as to why this was shut down. Subcommittee, is that right?
Yeah, the Civil Justice Subcommittee.
Here's a headline from Tennessee Star. This is authored by Chris Butler over at Tennessee Star. Tennessee legislators scared to fight civil asset forfeiture abuse, says Representative Martin Daniel. Tennessee legislators scared to fight civil asset forfeiture abuse, so says Representative Martin Daniel. We are going to tell you why they are scared to fight civil asset forfeiture, and I guarantee you it's not the answers you might just immediately think of. Be right back.
Too much dollar. There you go, on that $147 piggy bank. That's attorney testimony.
Took from all of its home electronics, including the children's Game Boys, PS4s, all of their cars and money, and even busted one of the children's piggy banks. All without a warrant. How the hell did they do that without a warrant?
Here's something, there was a poll that came out showing the popularity of this issue.
What did he do? Hang on. Do you know what this guy did? The person that they seized all of his house?
No, that's the attorney. The one testifying is the attorney who represented those clients. This was a commission report that was done on civil asset forfeiture. It was published in February 2018. Justin Owen from the Beacon Center and other Tennesseans worked on producing that document with recommendations.
He said, once the seizure has been completed, he explained a person is handed a green piece of paper that says, here's why we're taking your property, with a check marks in a box that says nothing more than narcotics. He noted the lack of any specificity in the allegations, adding, quote, that's it. You don't get, you sold narcotics last week. You sold narcotics today. We think you're moving heroin. It's just simply a box that says narcotics. And now we take your home all of the boys' electronics, the children's Game Boys, their PS4s, all of the family's cars, all of the family's monies, busting out of children's piggy bank containing $147, all without a warrant, and under applicable law, they can also seize a person's bank account, which leaves them with no ability to pay rent or electric bills, basically making them homeless for nothing more than a checkbox that says narcotics. Good Lord, dude.
And then you had, here was an interesting case where 2 Tennessee law
Can I have that back? Can you find that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This is, I want to post this online, this report, because it's just, the information in here is gold. Oh, here you go.
Dude, this poll is almost not even worth reading. After voters hear more about civil asset forfeiture, 80 of them want reform. Well, the other 20 don't know what you're talking about then, because 100% of people would want reform.
No, I mean, there's the law, like certain law enforcement, you know.
Yeah, screw those people. They're the people that are saying like, oh, I got nothing to hide. Until you have something to hide, man.
Yeah.
Get down on the ground. 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 Get down on the ground.
I'ma keep it trail with you.
All right, 8:54 in the morning. I might tease out why we really have Erik here in just a second, a little bit more, because we have him through the 9 hour. I'm just making him do that anyways, you know what I mean? He owes me some. He owes me a favor. This person we just talked about, okay? This little kid that had his piggy bank busted, and it's actually more than that. This individual's attorney told this committee of a case he had where law enforcement took from the family's home all of its electronics, including all of their children's Game Boys, PS4s, hiding their crack in the kids' PS4s, right? All of their cars and money, even busted out one of the children's piggy banks and containing $147, all without a warrant. He noted that under the law, they also can seize a person's bank accounts, leaving people with no ability to pay rent or electric bills, essentially making someone homeless, I would presume. Now, what do you get when this procedure happens, okay? Normally, under the Fourth Amendment, if they're going to come take everything from you, they have to have some element of specificity as to why and what they are taking. So says the Fourth Amendment. This is what this individual got. Once the seizure has been completed, he explained, a person is handed, quote, a green piece of paper that says, here's why we're taking your property. All it includes is a simple check mark in a box. A simple check mark in a box that says nothing more than just narcotics. He noted that there was a lack of any specificity in the allegations, adding, that's it. That's all you get. You don't get something explaining, hey, you sold narcotics last week. You don't get something explaining, hey, we think you sold narcotics today. All it is that we think you're moving heroin. So literally, they took this person's home, seized their bank accounts, took the children's PS4s and Game Boys, and took one of their kids' piggy banks for $147, all through the justification of a single checkmark in the box labeled narcotics. Are you following along right now? Are you getting it? Erik just sent me this, just gave me this survey here. And I told him off air this is probably not even worth reading because it's so absurd. After voters hear more about civil asset forfeiture, 80% of them want reform. So why are we not doing it? And this is across parties.
And that's Tennesseans only.
Is this Tennesseans?
It's Tennesseans only.
Check this out. Total 80% say that we need reform. 13% say it's working well. In the GOP, you would expect this. 73% say we need reform. Independents, 82% say we need reform. Democrats say 86% say we need reform. By ethnicity, white men say 83% say we need reform. White women, 76% say we need reform. African Americans, 82% say we need reform. Under this rule, police departments across the state can sell or auction forfeited property to supplement their budgets. That's a totally different issue, right? Law enforcement officials in Tennessee alone have seized and forfeited more than $85.9 million. $85.9 million in property between 2009 and 2014. And here's the thing. When an officer under civil asset forfeiture does not charge you with a crime, seizes your property, Erik, tell them where that money goes.
So when the officer seizes the property, or the cash, what it does is it goes to a fund that the police solely control. There's no legislative oversight at all. And so you get instances like happened previously in Tennessee where they spent $110,000 on catering. That was something. And
Come on,
banquets.
man. I don't mean to laugh about this, Eric. I don't. I know it's not.
No, it's
humorous.
okay.
It's just I don't know other way to deal with it.
Yeah, it is very crazy. I mean,
CNN DOJ. Here's the headline from CNN: DOJ watchdog. Tennessee spent $110,000 in seized funds on catering. Goodness gracious, man. All right, so this is going back to the local precincts, right? This is going back to the precincts.
that's it. Yeah, so the sheriff's department, the city police department, it's the slush fund for them.
All right, and look, to be honest, Joe, if the police departments want to buy the most ridiculously absurd thing in the world, if you want to buy a gumball machine that's 20 feet tall for your precinct, I don't care at all if you're doing that with criminally seized products. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly speaking, I seriously don't. If you're seizing El Chapo's yacht and you want to spend that $2 million on gold-plated guns for everybody, I seriously do not care. But if you're not charging people with a crime and you're spending it for anything at all, even stuff that's necessary, bullets, guns, cars, new updates for tires, I don't care. If it's coming from someone who didn't charge with a crime, I got a serious problem with that. Got to hit this break right now. Stick around for news, traffic, weather, all that. When we come back, we're going to tell you why Representative Martin Daniel is saying that Tennessee legislators are scared to fight civil asset forfeiture. Be right back.
That was that a good explanation though on the money?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want people to know that it's one way or another going back to the police, because that's a big thing for me is I think equitable sharing, and I think if they do seize anything, I would honestly like to see the criminal funds go to a general state fund too, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, eventually.
I mean, if they want to use the general state funds to go allocate right back to the police, that's fine, but if there's at least that process by which some elected representative has to okay, yeah, y'all need new guns, no problem. But I want some sense of oversight of it. It's like the FBI holding themselves accountable. You know what I mean? I don't like.
So the one thing that's going to happen this year.
I'm taking a break with her.
Okay.
All right, now. I heard it openly said by a spokesman for the Confederacy of our present day, one of whom is now our Attorney General. But he, not that he said this, but partisans of his said this, said, well, how would those Africans have gone along if we just left them in West Africa? Didn't we do them a favor? We made them Americans, didn't we? We brought them here. Do they wish they had not been removed? Now, this argument also, I think, shows a very bad conscience. Indeed, I'm going to come back to this argument, by the way. Bear it in mind. Bear in mind what the underlay of this discussion really is. But always notice and pay attention when people appear to be changing the subject and just distracting or trying to redirect your attention to some theoretical or cosmic or abstract injustice that can't be rectified, that's beyond the reach of justice, that's past our power to heal or to alter. In other words, beware when someone tries to make the best the enemy of the good. This is the charge I'm going to make against the good Professor Lowry, whose opening speech I thought was superb. Beware of making the best the enemy of the good. That's where I'll turn to our present case. Review it in the same way. Conduct, if you will, the same thought experiment. Was there an original traceable offense? Was there a taking, a theft, a rape, a dispossession, a confiscation? There isn't a thinking person who can say no to that. The evidence is very clear, and it mounts with every chapter of historical inquiry. Did it consist of, as I say, a confiscation? Can it therefore be made good? If not all of it can be made good, can some of it be made good? Can any of it be repaired? Don't make the best the enemy of the good. Is there anything to be rescued from this terrible story? Is there anything that can be done about it once it's been recognized? We cannot possibly undo. I actually don't think we even dare think of the scope of what it would take to imagine undoing the damage done to Africa, especially to West Africa, by the period of colonization, colonial division, plunder, slavery, and rape. We can't undo the enforced underdevelopment of Africa, though we are, you may notice, compelled to keep trying to do that on other fronts all the time and to deal with the consequences of the amputation and dismemberment of Africa in that period. And who would say we shouldn't do that, little enough as it is? Who would say it isn't our responsibility to do that in Africa now as well? I hope none of you would. We can't make up for the Middle Passage, for the uncounted millions of people who were captured and raped and tortured before they even made it across the Atlantic to be other people's property. We can't undo that, but we can refuse, we can decline to forget it. If you really want to think about all the things that can't be redeemed, you'll be in some danger, I think, of weeping. But in my hometown of Washington, D.C., there's hardly one official brick piled on another that wasn't piled there by unpaid labor under the whip. And that dead labor becomes dead capital and dead souls, dead money, and it's piled actually in the Treasury Department and the federal financial system, who took that free labor and those dead souls and turned it into capital, and it's back pay, and it's owed, and it's overdue. Now, Professor Lowry, in his very indignant nobility, said that he would repudiate this cash. He'd say, keep your money, you can't buy me like that. I respect him very much for it. I hope he would say that. I would support him in saying it if he would. He can only say it for himself, it seems to me. He misses two opportunities, and I'll have to condense my remarks here. He misses the chance, a very important chance. He doesn't want us to miseducate African Americans to feel dependent, to feel mendicant, to feel entitled. And I see why he says so. He's missing the chance to remind white society of what it does not know. He's missing a chance to challenge the complacency and the historical nullity of white society that says we don't owe anyone anything. How dare these people bring all this stuff up? It's the, it was too long ago. So when he says keep your damn money, I'm all the way with him, but he can't say keep your damn history, and let's turn that back too. This is America. The right to entitlement, to inheritance, to a share in the common treasury is what defines that. If it has to be fought for in law, so much the worse. But there's no alternative but to fight over it, and if I've done nothing else, I'm sure now every one of you knows that Lord Elgin is pronounced with a hard G.
As native-born Americans, unfortunately, commit crime at over twice the rate of undocumented immigrants. So if we're going to kick anyone out, it would be us. Well, not me, because I wasn't born here. But of course we're not going to do that either, because we all work together and we can win together. Now, in terms of wages, Tucker is absolutely right that wages have been stagnant. And they have been stagnant since about 1978. Productivity has not. The American worker has been wonderfully productive. It has gone up by over 200% since that time. But if you're looking to see who took your wages, don't look down, look up. The guy, just last thought here, the guy who walked in and crossed the border without a penny to his name did not somehow rig the rules. No, the person who rigged the rules are the ones that are...
That's Cenk Unger. He's the worst.
So how's the social media thing going there?
It's going all right, man. We have, I don't have a lot of followers yet, but I've been saying for a while I need to get YouTube up, cut up these little vignettes, and been doing that. So we got a YouTube channel. We have, also started a little vlog on the YouTube channel too, just sort of the behind the scenes stuff. We have Instagram, Facebook, obviously. Twitter's been going for a while too. I'm about one step away from putting our podcast available on iTunes and all that stuff. So
yeah,
should be good, man. I'm not sure how much this terrestrial version is going to last in the airwaves, but Trump lied about Obama. Man, all right, hang on.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on with that board over there.
Which board?
That Jones.
Oh, that's what they're going to talk about, what the college is going to talk about.
Yeah, I can stay as long as you want.
All right.
Yeah.
I got to get Jones' call out of the way first. This is something I brought up in the beginning of the show.
Here's a... Well, no, you're working on something?
Yeah, hang on a sec.
Sure. long is this break?
This segment?
Yeah.
We go to 9:18. $9:08 in the morning. Welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. My name is
Mr. Henry. We are broadcasting live from the FMT Insurance Studios, this palatial estate here. I'm joined by Erik Wiatr. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well.
Crown Plaza call number, I'll open that up now, 865-888-TALK. That's 865-888-8255. We're going to have to take a bit of a backtrack here. Joan wants to talk about Trump lying about Obama, I suppose, with the child separation policy. Then we'll get back into civil asset forfeiture. Just so we're all on the same page here, what I just left us off with was Representative Martin Daniels saying that Tennessee legislators are scared to fight civil asset forfeiture. Before we get back into that topic, though, let's go to Joan. Again, subheading is Trump lied about Obama. Joan, what's on your mind?
Yes, well, good morning, everybody. And, I watch the 6 o'clock news just to see how they butcher the news, or the 6:30 in the evening news and Good Morning America. And last night, after Trump just really flat out told the truth on Obama and what he was doing, they photoshopped all of that on ABC and made it look like Trump was almost running from the questions that Jonathan Karl was asking him about. And then when they made the point about Obama did the same thing, they put up this picture of Obama, this still photo or artwork almost, and it's got Obama's hands reached up like a figure of Christ blessing all the multitudes on the mount with all these swirling colors around him. And they say, but Obama did not really do what Trump said he did. He did not put people in, and they just refuted everything there that Trump had accused him of, which Obama really did. And so, when you're talking about battles and these young people, this propaganda unit that calls itself media in our country now, there is nothing they won't stoop to either to make their, to counter a point or to make a point. And, it's just like, all you hear on the news this morning, even on, the news that comes in to your program, is how Democrats are not satisfied. They're issuing a subpoena. Well, the subpoena is based on an illegality. And if he honors the subpoena, he breaks the law, talking about Barr. And so, but they make it like Democrats have all the power. They really do not. And they can issue all the subpoenas they want, and Barr has the right, if they're asking him to break the law, to tell him to go pound sand, which I believe he's going to. But just last night was one of the most blatant things I've ever seen to date on how they mislead the public on what Obama really did.
Yeah. And I want to add to that too. When I bring up this decision by the Ninth Circuit, what that ties back to is an affirmation of a lower court ruling from 1997, and that's what I'm going on the entire time here too. This is what I'm talking about. This is coming from Sacabee.com. This is the federal government can't hold immigrant children in detention without explaining their reasons in front of an independent judge. This is a federal appeals court said Wednesday of more than a few years back. The decision by a 3-judge panel of the Ninth U.S. Circuit of Court of Appeals Appeals means non-citizen minors detained by authorities will maintain the right to have an immigration judge review the government's reasoning for keeping them in custody, a position the federal government argued against. Now, here's what it goes down to. The Ninth Circuit opinion reaffirms the lower court's ruling that the federal government is required to follow rules set in the settlement of a 1997 lawsuit, Flores versus Janet Reno, which gives minors detained by immigration authorities the right to a bond hearing. That legal proceeding gives them the ability to fight the government's custody case against them in front of an independent judge. Now, unless I'm reading this wrong, unless my legal reasoning is off, what that means is it was affirming, the Ninth Circuit was affirming a 1997 civil ruling that basically said if you detain the parents, a minor cannot also be detained unless you give them a hearing first. That is where, in my opinion, the epicenter of the whole separating child thing started. Now, unfortunately, it seems like Department of Homeland Security or Immigration Customs or anything else didn't necessarily keep these numbers accurate up until very recent time, which is why it's become such a heavy topic at hand for under the Trump administration.
Here's another thing, too, though. The real crux of the matter is the Flores decision should have applied to Flores and Flores only. That was on Ben Shapiro yesterday afternoon, who's, I forget his title, but he obviously was a credentialed person deals with this kind of thing, and he said it can be argued successfully in court that the Flores decision applied only to the woman that the decision was made about, and that the whole thing could be done away with. But these people out here yelling and screaming for Congress to act, that's just a joke. There is no way the House is gonna work with Trump on any of this, improving any of this. They want this. They want the districts filled with so they can get more representation. You're right. It's not about voting yet.
Right.
Because most of these people can't even speak enough English, and most of them are illiterate in their own country. Don't know how to read and write their own language. And so, that's not the problem. Like you said, it's filling these districts is gerrymandering on a grand scale.
Yeah, that's exactly. But if y'all want to know why one of the biggest issues about a year ago was whether or not the Trump administration was going to put a question into the 2020 census of are you an actual citizen, are you an illegal immigrant, the reason why that was such a big question is because, again, this whole influx of immigration, we had the specialist on, a constitutional attorney from California that was making this argument saying, and I initially misread her, I thought it was all about illegal immigrants literally getting a right to vote or getting some fabricated driver's license or something. It wasn't about that. She says it's not necessarily about them voting. It might be. It may become that. Currently, it's about when you take a census, though, if San Francisco looks that their population has risen by 200,000 individuals because 200,000 of those individuals are not supposed to be here, they're not American citizens, but you don't ask them if they're American citizens, what happens? San Francisco gets more representation. Alabama is about to lose a member of the House right now. They're about to lose representation in America because we don't play the sanctuary city game. That's what it's about. It's about electoral college, about getting more representation in America because of people that, quite frankly, shouldn't be represented in America. I know that sounds bad to say, but here's what I'm saying, Joan, okay? If you're following my legal reasoning, this is what we have. Unfortunately, if we have tens of thousands of people that are showing up to this border, we have to do one of two things. There are laws on the books. We either change those laws, or you have to enforce the laws. It's not going to happen. I think Democrats want it to happen, right? Because the other option is you don't change the laws and you just don't enforce the laws. You just sort of let people come in and expect them to show back up to their court date, which may or may not happen, but we're just sort of arbitrarily asking someone to not enforce a law without even considering changing those laws. I don't mind having a conversation about changing them, Joan. I don't. I do have a problem with having a law in the book and half of the country saying, forget about that law. Let's just not even enforce it. We don't have to enforce it, but let's change it first.
Well, here's the thing. When you start defining down legalities and ignoring laws, eventually, it becomes no big thing. Just look at abortion turning into infanticide. This is defining things down in America, and we're on the conservative people. Unfortunately, I believe we're just on the losing end of it. How to make our voices heard. The best thing that has happened is the blooming of right-wing news, and I hate to use the word right-wing, but just to get the truth out about what is really happening up there. You know, they can't hide from the 25 million that Rush reaches, from the 14 or 15 million that Shapiro reaches, those that Levin reaches, Hannity reaches. These are and people like you, you know, that are on here, and every morning, you know, this is the biggest bane in the side of the propagandistic media, and I do say propagandistic because I just invite WC, anybody on the left, to tell me the last time that they upheld any conservative belief or any conservative statute in the media. It's always, you know, and they're trying to give the impression as this mess goes forward with the Mueller report, that these Democrats in Congress have all the power and the say-so in a subpoena.
Right.
But they simply do not.
They simply don't. John, we're going to hit this break. By the way,
Well,
JC's saying...
guys.
Thank you, John. We'll talk to John later. There goes John. JC's saying on Facebook, by the way, the caller who's on right now is exactly right. So much false information and propaganda on the so-called news. This is the biggest threat to our country right now. Let me say this one more time. This is again coming from SACBEE.com. If you want to follow along, this article is written in 2016, 2017, I believe, saying, prior to the Flores settlements, 1997, prior to the Flores settlement, the government could keep non-citizen immigrant minors detained indefinitely without much due process because they inhabit a gray legal area where the government acts as a quasi-parental role, so says Cooper. Now, here's the interesting thing. What does that mean? Without all the rigmarole of the legalese, what that basically means is prior to 1997, you could. After 1997, because of this ruling from the Ninth Circuit that affirmed after 1997 is when it was started that you can't detain a minor. So what do? This is what I'm saying. If you have to detain the parents because they have broken some type of codified code, which they have simply by being here, if you have to detain the parents, you cannot detain the children as well. Therefore, if you are enforcing the laws in the books, it is an absolute necessity, an actual inevitability. If you are enforcing the laws on the books, then you have to separate the children. So says the Ninth Circuit. That's what Trump is talking about. So here's the other option. What are you asking me to do, Democrats? Not enforce the law? That's okay. But don't come to me and just say that enforcing the law through a representative republic decision, that's the reason why the law is there. Don't tell me that the Ninth Circuit is also xenophobic. It's an asinine argument. It's not just illogical, it's disingenuous, and it's purposely misleading. Are you following along now? Since 1997, this law has been in the books, that you have to separate the children because you can't detain minors. So now all of a sudden it's a xenophobic stance to enforce the law that's been there since 1997. I'm losing my mind. 9:20. I'm not going to be able to calm down either. We're going to come back with civil asset forfeiture. Be right back.
That's the freaking infuriating to me, man. I mean, I'm not saying that the Trump administration is doing it better than any others. I'm just saying, you know how I am, man. Like, if you don't like the law, then change it. I'm not necessarily blaming some of these officers right now for doing what they're doing with civil asset forfeiture stuff. Some of them I am, but
it's legal.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's immoral, but it's legal.
Exactly.
If you get a chance, here's a really good article of two officers that were charged with extortion. And what they claimed, their defense was, we were just following the state civil forfeiture law.
Yeah, see, and you know what's weird about that, bro, is I was talking to Sherry about this yesterday. Like, you start saying some of this stuff and you feel yourself getting dangerously close into the realm of, like, look, Nazi agents were just saying they were following the law, you know what I mean? Like, how immoral does the law have to become before you start to say, regardless of it being legal or not, the morality overwhelms your legal stance. Your legal justification doesn't mean crap to me right now because, you know, the Nazis were technically doing something legal, but
yeah,
they were doing something arguably is the most immoral thing of all of human history, right?
So are you going to take that other caller there too?
I'm going to get through Roasted first. He's talking about what you want to talk about, but I need to, I've been teasing this stuff too long.
He's good waiting.
He calls in every day, yeah. He's good waiting whether he wants or not. I had to get like that with the audience, dude. I mean, I love taking phone calls, but at the same time, you know, I don't necessarily know if everyone listens to the show just to listen to the callers go on so long, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How
long have you been doing this now, man? It's been a pretty long time.
It has actually. I think it's about 2-3 years, something like that.
Wow, I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah.
How early do you get here in the morning?
I live kind of far away. I usually get here like right before we go on air, but I do a bit of prep in the morning too. So I usually wake up around 4:30.
Okay.
Some stuff breaks overnight that I didn't catch up on, and especially international stories tend to either update or catch up on overnight. So oddly enough, very few people care about the international stories. I've been wanting to go on the Brexit stuff for a while, but I don't think anyone really is too concerned about it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's typical.
All right, so I'm going to, what am I going to do, Erik? All right, I'm going to come back in with that. I would cut a little bit from, I'll recap.
You wanted to talk about equitable sharing.
Yeah, but I want to save that for a minute, just redefine it when we get to why people are afraid.
Martin Daniels.
Yeah, I'll recap where we came from,
yeah.
civil asset forfeiture.
I can add to some of that. When we were doing the lobbying, like a lot of times legislators would say like, well, I have to speak with my guys. They always said that. It was never, let me talk with my law enforcement back home. It's like, let me speak to my guys back home. It was always funny.
Jeez.
And then, let's see. So.
I don't. If you're cool for the rest of the hour, man, we may just play this out for the rest of the hour because I think it's good.
Works for you.
Plus, people like local stuff on a local show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, so you have Martin Daniel. He's local. He pushed this bill. Actually, he's been fighting hard on this issue now for like 3 years.
Has he?
Yeah, he did another meaningful reform bill in 2017. And then Justin Lafferty, too.
Hey, it's 9:24 in the morning. Let me catch you up 30 seconds here. We're talking civil asset forfeiture. What is civil asset forfeiture? That's where police can take your stuff. I don't know, money, cars, your home, your bank accounts, your kid's piggy bank. It doesn't matter. No, I mean, seriously, we just read that story where they took a kid's piggy bank, busted it open for $147. They can take all of it without charging you with a crime. What do they do then, Mr. Henry? They charge the property itself with a crime. The discretion of the police officer says, we think. It's up to my discretion. It's more likely than not, possibly, that we think your money is about to be used in some alleged crime that has not happened yet. So we're going to make you come to the courthouse and prove the innocence of your property. That is a very true thing. That's what happens. These numbers are staggering. This is not a menial thing that happens once or twice a year in Tennessee. We're moving to this topic now as to why Martin Daniels, Tennessee Star headline, Tennessee legislators are scared to fight civil asset forfeiture abuse. This is the topic I've been wanting to bring up. I heard this from a few other people. Erik's about here to confirm it. Here's the first paragraph. Members of the Tennessee General Assembly won't tackle civil asset forfeiture abuse because they fear a backlash from law enforcement. So says Martin Daniel. That's right. Yeah, okay, we can all follow along with that. It's much worse than that, though. I'll explain in a minute. Daniel serves in the legislature's Civil Justice Subcommittee, and he told the Tennessee Star on Monday that for the past 3 years, he's filed bills that, quote, would have substantially reformed the problem. He said his colleagues don't show his bill much, if any, support. And there's a reason for that. Quote, it's coming from Martin Daniel, Representative Martin Daniel. Law enforcement likes to have this revenue, I would assume, because there's not a lot of accountability and transparency. They can use this money to spend it any way they want to without the legislature or a county commission's oversight. Now, according to JusticeActionNetwork.org, Tennessee law enforcement officers can use civil asset forfeiture to seize and sell people's property. They can do this, quote, based upon only their suspicion that has been involved in criminal activity without having to charge the citizen with a crime. So that's fine. $85 million here since 2009. 2009 to 2014, $85.9 million has been seized. Now you say, Mr. Henry, makes sense. Fine, they're afraid from backlash from police officers. Police carry a lot of power, not just in Tennessee and your local areas, in the nation at large as well, too, especially under Trump. That's fine. But it goes a little bit further than that. So we're stuck in subcommittee a couple months back. And allegedly, apparently, reportedly, these legislators get an idea from some officers from somewhere about what's really going to happen if we stop equitable sharing, what's really going to happen if we push through some of these bills, what the local officers will no longer be able to prosecute or pursue. What is that?
So what legislators were being told, Tennessee, any restriction on the federal government's equitable sharing program, they will not be able to prosecute illegal immigration and sex trafficking laws. And that just no documentation to prove that. We have 9 states.
3-minute
in the
stations.
nation.
3 minutes to your next Fox News 3030.
Hang on a sec. Roz, did you get that 3-minute hearing? Did you hear that? No? We just heard 3-minute station, 3-minute station 2, next Fox News.
All right.
All right, so it's 3 minutes. Anyways, yeah.
So to continue quickly then here, so we have 9 states have restricted it. Equitable sharing in some way since 2015. We're talking about states like Nebraska and Ohio. Obviously, these are not pro-sex trafficking states. We're talking about states like Arizona. Obviously, Arizona being on the border is not a pro-illegal immigration state. But these law enforcement officers actually make this claim to legislators, and unfortunately, it is scaring some of the legislators.
All right, so one more time, what is equitable sharing? We're throwing a lot of not just large terms, but terms that don't make any sense in and of themselves, right? Some states require a criminal conviction before prosecutors can permanently seize assets and do not allow law enforcement agencies to keep those forfeited proceeds. Equitable sharing creates a way for police to bypass these strict state laws. Through adoption, the feds can prosecute the case under looser federal laws and then return up to 80% of this proceeds back to the local cops. So you're understanding. Equitable sharing is basically, let's say we shut it down, okay? At the Tennessee level, and this has happened in other states, right, Eric?
Yes.
Let's say we shut it down at the Tennessee level and say, police officers at the local level in Tennessee, you have to charge the person with a crime first before you seize their assets. Okay, let's say they don't do that. Let's say that is all law on the books. What can they do to get around for that? What the officers do in some cases, and I'm not saying in Tennessee they would do this, I'm just saying in other states they have done this, they just go to the feds. They just go to the feds and say, hey, prosecute this under a federal law. You get to keep 20% of what we're taking and give us back the other 80%. So therefore, the criminal conviction means nothing. Now, what Eric just said, that equitable sharing program, apparently, man, the police officers or somebody got to legislators and said, if you do away with the equitable sharing, this is what Eric's saying, this is apparently why it was shut down, why it didn't go anywhere this year. Police officers at the local level will no longer be able to prosecute child sex trafficking and illegal immigrants. Is that right?
Correct.
Dude, can you fill in the blanks for me? I'm not asking legally. I don't know. Where's the connection? How does that happen?
Yeah, they never provided, there was legislators like Martin Daniel and Mike Carter that asked for documentation of this. They never provided that documentation. They never provided it to groups like AFP. They requested it too. I don't think they have any factual basis for what they're saying. Clearly, we don't, it would be headline news if there were 9 states in the United States where sex trafficking and illegal immigration was not being enforced at all.
Yeah.
That would be headline news. And, obviously it doesn't exist.
I mean, that's all I'm asking, too. I'm not necessarily positing a claim right now. All I'm saying is, Eric would probably agree, if it is true that doing away with equitable sharing would cause local law enforcement to have no ability at all to prosecute sex traffickers and illegal immigrants, that would create serious pause to try and push for civil asset forfeiture to be done away with. We still might push it, but it would have serious consideration of, hold on, man, if this is going to cause sex trafficking to run rampant, it's not worth it. I'll let the little granny have her $500 stolen from her, which is what it is, stolen from her, if it means some poor little innocent 6-year-old kid is not going to be trafficked around. That's fine. I think that, the pros outweigh the cons there. I get it. But I don't see any evidence of that. Yeah. Moreover, I don't see the logical connection at all. Is it true then if you do away with equitable sharing, what are they even saying? That there's some process or procedure by which they can't have cooperation with the FBI or something?
Yeah, I think it's just inaccurate information. So the states that have passed it, restrictions on equitable sharing, normally what they pass is they say, okay, for cases below $50,000, you have to follow the state law. Mm-hmm. You can't pass the case over to the feds. And so what those states have seen is, they don't want their state laws to be undermined, but those states still participate in equitable sharing for those cases above 50K or above 100K, whatever the state decides.
And to be fair, there was it New Mexico?
So there's right? New Mexico is the one instance that they possibly could be referring to. And so New Mexico did a restriction. They were the first state to do a restriction on equitable sharing. But the restriction on equitable sharing wasn't the problem. What New Mexico said is all money from equitable sharing needs to go into the state's general fund. Mm-hmm. That violates Department of Justice guidelines. That was the reason they were kicked out. Martin Daniels' bill, nor any bill since 2017 that we've been supporting, has that clause that would put the equitable sharing funds in Tennessee general
It just
fund.
does away with equitable sharing. 'Cause, I mean, you understand that.
No, it puts a restriction on it.
Okay,
severe
restriction. Right. All right. Yeah. So that, I mean, that's what I'm saying is if you're violating the procedure of the DOJ, then that's fine. But that's not what's going on in Tennessee. You need to be clear about that.
Yes.
9:32 in the morning. Hit this break. Come back with Stimpy's call and a few other stuff. Be right back.
Makes sense.
Yeah. There's so much of the stuff I prepped for today. I don't even know why I prepped for the show anymore, man. It's ridiculous.
You just know.
I just know. I want to get to reparations today. I have a whole bunch of stuff pulled from William Barr's testimony yesterday.
Here, if you want to read that, I mean, just from a legal, we don't have to talk about it today, but from a legal standpoint, I think you'll crack up at this case right here. Justin Lafferty had a reporting bill too.
By the way, this is totally off topic, but did you ever talk to him about why he didn't vote yes in the heartbeat bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Tennessee Right to Life did not support the bill.
Yeah, I got that too. And what we heard, and I'm pretty sure I read this, is basically it's inevitably going to fail, and we don't want to waste a bunch of taxpayer money. We don't want to give a bunch of money to Planned Parenthood either. If we're going to swing, we better swing for a grand slam. If you're going to do something that's going to fail, take abortion off the table altogether.
Sure. So according to Tennessee Right for Life, every state that has passed this bill, it has been ruled unconstitutional in the courts.
True.
And they're also concerned that if you get an activist judge, it could actually roll back some of Tennessee's protections for unborn.
Interesting.
I mean, that's what Tennessee Right to Life has said.
It sucks, man, because at least from the people that listen to this show, he was taking a lot of heat for that, and I tried to do my best to explain the reasoning behind what he was talking about, because to me it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
To a lot of people, though, they were saying, like, all right, so hold on, you're saying just because it's inevitably bound to fail, it's not worth fighting for? And I guess I see that side of the argument too, but...
Well, I think the concern that Tennessee Right to Life had is that it would actually roll back protections, you know, and that's directly from a statement from them.
That makes sense. So it would do more harm than it actually
Yeah,
would.
and then the other thing, too, is Tennessee Right to Life, obviously, they're supporting bills to move that in the right direction. The issue is this wasn't their bill. They thought it was a bad bill.
Let me see this. 2 former Calhoun officers. Is it Calhoun? Where is this from?
McMinn County, I think the Calhoun officers, but that's in the county of McMinn, I believe.
2 former Calhoun officers, each facing 6 counts for alleged actions during their time on the force. They were originally indicted on 2 counts of extortion May 2017, but recently had 4 more counts added on. Each count's linked to a different victim from 4 settlements. So wait, these are the ones that were just basically...
So these officers were enforced, what they feel like they were doing was enforcing the state's civil forfeiture laws. Now, part of the state's civil forfeiture laws allow police departments to make a settlement. So they take your car, right?
Yeah.
And they say, here's the process to get your car back. Maybe it takes 6 to 8 months. You need to spend $350 bonds to get your car back.
Right.
Or they'll say, look, give us $500 for our police fund. We'll give you your car back today. And so they were charged with extortion. However, the officers were found not guilty because
they were following statute?
Yeah, they were following state law.
They cited Tennessee Code Annotated 4033 212, which he argued allowed for informal settlements to be made because it states, quote, only the chief administration officers of seizing agency or the officer's designee shall be permitted to negotiate or enter into any type of settlements or agreements prior to the forfeiture hearing.
And that article came out like in 2018. This is fairly
It's like an
recent.
SNL skit, that dude.
Yeah.
I promise. Oh, but it's not.
And
it's
it's
really
like,
not.
yeah. And then they go into some cases where they're taking people's vehicles and they're like, yeah, give us $1,000 in our police fund and we'll give you the keys.
I'm gonna go into this. It's honestly like a police officer showing up to your door. Hey, we're trying to raise charitable funds for the for the police officers' ball this year. You want to donate? No, I'm sorry, it's okay. Click, click. What about now?
Yeah. Or they throw the boot on your car and then they ask you to donate to the charity and they say, for us to get this boot off, give us $250.
So they were not found not guilty.
Not
Okay.
guilty because they were following the state law. Somebody, a district attorney somewhere, was like, "This looks like extortion." And see, that's a huge problem. That the water is so muddy that extortion and civil forfeiture settlements, there's no distinction, that like 2 officers actually got charged.
Well, yeah, but the crazy thing, dude, is literally, without exaggeration, in any other context, anywhere in this country, for anything, you would be charged with straight up extortion, would you not?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to end it on a positive note, though, before we end, just talking about what all the states have done.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Just so people know, this is moving, in my opinion, from a legislative perspective, rapidly in the right direction.
That is good.
We are winning this battle.
It's important to get people pissed off about it first.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll come back and read this real quick. Go to Stimpy's call. I'll try and keep him short, and then we'll end the last segment with, by the way, there's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Silver linings.
If Sherry Clark's watching, she'll be like, of course Erik wants to end on a positive note.
The intro I want to play, it's about less than 90 seconds.
All right. 760.
A cool start to a mostly sunny Wednesday. Look for highs this afternoon about 78 degrees. Tonight's low near 50. And tomorrow partly cloudy. Clouds increase during the afternoon with highs in the upper 70s. Chance for scattered showers and thunderstorms part of Thursday night and Friday. And then again late in the weekend, Sunday into early part of Monday before cooler air arrives once again. Check out Ripley's Aquarium of the Smokies and all 8 Ripley's attractions in Sevier County. Great place to be for spring break this year. From the 6th Storm Team, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Hinkin for the East Tennessee Weather Network.
It's 56 at Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760. Live from the FMT Insurance Studios of Talk Radio 92.3 and AM 760, this is Real News with Mr. Henry and Nick Crawford. Join the conversation on the Crown Plaza call-in line, 865-888-TALK.
Government is always a mess. Because the state opposes itself to the people. It's got to be watched. You know what that leads to? Big Brother. It leads to the totalitarian state where everybody is his brother's policeman. And where everybody is watching everybody else to report them to the authorities. Where you can't trust your own motivation. Where you have to have a psychoanalyst in charge of you all the time to think, be sure that you don't think dangerous thoughts or peculiar thoughts. And you report all peculiar thoughts to your analyst. And your analyst keeps a record of them and reports them to the government. And everybody is busy keeping records of everything. Much more important to record what happens than what happens. This is already eating us up. So the Taoists were trying to say to governors, look, lay off. Please leave things alone.
Hey, welcome back to Real News, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm going to go to Stimpy's call here in just a second. We're joined by Erik Wiatr. We're talking about civil asset forfeiture in Tennessee. Erik says we do want to end on a good note. That's fine, but I still want to make the audience a little bit more frustrated than we already have. All right, you thought that Representative Marcy are running a these lobbyist efforts that are coming in saying if we remove equitable sharing, we've already described what that is, but if we remove equitable sharing, the Tennessee law enforcement will no longer be able to prosecute properly. Prosecute's not the right word. Sorry, let me be proper here. They'll no longer be able to pursue, if you will, I don't know, child sex trafficking and illegal immigrants. I don't follow logically. I certainly don't follow legally. Here's another story that Erik just handed me today. This is totally true. What did you say, McMinn County? Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So these 2 officers, Calhoun chief of police made a statement on this, but these 2 officers, the trial, former Calhoun chief of police, I won't say his name, and another officer, these 2 were originally indicted by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI, for those in the know. They were originally indicted. They were charged with extorting their arrestees by, quote, by seizing their personal property. I swear, I am not making this up. This is not an SNL skit. This is 100% true. And I'm not meaning to laugh about it, Erik. I just don't know what else to do with it. They were arrested for extorting their arrestees by, quote, seizing the arrestees' personal property until the arrestees contributed money to the police department's drug fund. I am not making this up. They took the people's stuff and said, if you contribute to our fund, if you buy a policeman balls ticket, then we'll give you your stuff back. I promise you this is real. I was just talking to Erik a second ago, and I said, it's like someone showing up to your door and saying, hey, you want to buy a ticket to the policeman's ball? And Erik said, yeah, exactly. You got this boot on your car. We'll take this boot off your car if you buy a ticket. All right, so what happened to these people, right? You would say that's obviously patently against the law. It's clearly against the law if anybody else does it. Just because I have a badge on my shoulder doesn't mean all of a sudden inherit the authority to charge someone's property for a fund into my drug fund. They were each facing 6 counts of alleged actions during their time in the Calhoun force. They were recently indicted with 2 counts each of extortion in May 2017. Recently had 4 more counts added on. Now, what's the follow-up to that story? Not guilty. Not guilty. You want to know why not guilty? Because of this right here. They were cited going under Tennessee Code Annotated 4033-212, which allowed for the informal settlements. I'm going to say this slow. This statute allegedly allowed for informal settlements to be made because it states, quote, only the chief administrative officers of the seizing agency or the officer's designee shall be permitted to negotiate or enter into any type of settlement agreement or agreements prior to the forfeiture hearing. What does that say? It basically says you got a problem with state law in my mind, and if you have a problem with state law in my mind, this state law, they got off the hook because the state law says, by the way, based upon solely the police officer's discretion, if they want to enter into some quote-unquote negotiation to get your stuff back prior to a hearing happening, that statute says they can. So the police officers allegedly, and what we've just shown here, could straight steal your stuff, extort you through basically saying, contribute to my drug fund, and then I'll give you your stuff back, and it's all legal.
And not only that, this happened just last year alone in 1,128 settlement cases, just in Tennessee.
Let's go to Stimpy. He's been hanging on for a while. I'm going to try and give JB enough time as well, too. Stimpy, so I can get both of y'all in here before the break. Let's do about 2 or 3 minutes if you each can. Sorry, man, I know you've been hanging on for a while, but non-criminal asset forfeiture, what's on your mind, buddy?
Okay, with what you've been talking about, I can literally tie all this together with references. Because as I've been telling you about where we're thinking about what's happening within our own borders, in 2007, November of 2007, that's actually when the United States actually drafted asset forfeiture. And I'm going to read this directly from that bill. It said one of the first steps in the international forfeiture process is to identify and locate assets beyond U.S. borders that may be forfeitable, either under an in rem civil action or in personam criminal action. It continues on, and it goes on to say that the United States has ratified several major multilateral conventions that provide for a wide range of assistance in forfeiture and money laundering cases, including the following, among others. United Nations Convention Against Illicit Traffic, and then it goes on again, the International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, and the list goes on and on. Now, that was in November of 2007. In addition to that, in 2010, the United Nations released this. This is directly on their own website, the United Nations and the Rule of Law, a good practices guide for non-conviction-based asset forfeiture. This is a training program from the United Nations that was released in 2010. Now, when you're actually talking about assets, what is the biggest asset that we can actually possess in the United States? That's land. So when it comes down to the Bureau of Land Management, and these numbers here are from 2017 that I actually pulled off of our government's website as well. The Bureau of Land Management actually manages public land in the amount of 248.3 million acres. The federal subsurface mineral estates for 700 million acres. For multi-use purposes is 192.9 million acres. And then as of last year, if I recall correctly, the federal government owns 640 million acres. The total landmass of the United States, counting Alaska as well as Hawaii, is 2.27 billion acres with a B. The total land that our government possesses, 1,781,200,000 acres. That leaves a total of approximately 500 million acres that we can that we can actually own. These things, as I've stated before, are coming from outside of the United States. These laws that are so radical that make no sense, they are not coming from within the United States. They're coming from outside.
And just to give some context to that, Stimpy, and plus, because I gotta hit this break real quick too. Look, I said this at the beginning when we covered this topic. It's worth giving some context to. Look, civil forfeiture itself has a history dating back several hundred years, with roots, say, in British maritime law. Either I told you came from maritime law and British navigation acts around the middle of the 1600s. These laws required ships importing and exporting goods from British ports to fly the British flag. Ships that failed to do this could be seized, regardless of whether the ship's owners were guilty of doing any wrongdoing. It was just simply easier to seize a vessel than to try and apprehend an owner who was on the other side of the ocean, and not only on the other side of the ocean, but if you're not flying a particular flag, how do you know who the owner of that ship might potentially be? That's kind of what's carried over in today, and that's a little bit of what's going on of what Stimpy's talking about as well, too, of sort of this international approach, this international influence for what's going on at a local level. Now, it also lends some ideas to what's the practice still left around when most of the time we can state and see the owner and charge them with the crime. Either way, Stimpy, I'll give the last 30 seconds here, and it's only about 30 seconds, unfortunately, before we hit this break, but go ahead.
Okay, as has been stated, when we use words, you have to understand my definition because it may be different than yours. But amuse, from late 15th century, to divert the attention, beguile, delude, from old French amuser, fool, tease, hoax, entrap, make fun of, literally cause to muse, as a distraction from at to, from Latin, add, but here probably a causal prefix plus muser, which means or stare fixedly. The government's purpose is to amuse the public, and it intentionally, literally means that you are ignorant and you are a fool.
All right, here, it's a good place to end right there, buddy. Stimpy, as always, we appreciate hearing from you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hey, there goes Stimpy. Let's hit this last break right now. Come back. This final segment, Erik wants to let us know. Look, it's bad. It's been dire. We're letting you know. I'm letting you know how bad civil asset forfeiture is, just so you're upset, just so Erik can come in the back and say, hey, hold on. We are doing some good things, though, right? We are making a bit of headway. He's smiling at me right now. 9:50. Be right back.
Fun stuff, man.
Man, I love talking
this
about
every day.
Yeah, right. I love talking about civil asset forfeiture.
It's such a win-win issue.
It is, I know, right?
It's so pro-liberty. It's popular.
Mm-hmm. And it's also one of those things, too, man, it's such an easy cover if you do get the inevitable backlash that you may get. Because I'm sure some opponent somewhere in the future is going to pull this audio back and be like, look how much Mr. Henry hates the police. It's such an easy retort, too, saying, all I'm asking for the police is a little bit of clarity. I mean, obviously, you don't want the citizens thinking that you're arbitrarily taking their money so you guys can go buy a gumball machine, right? If that's not what you want, put it in general state fund. Don't do the federal equitable sharing. Make it easier for the people to get their stuff back. You want to have a and like, if you're keeping this for your individual precincts and not charging these people officers, that's hogwash. I'm trying to help you demonstrate to the people that that's hogwash, and you can do that by these few things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it definitely leaves a bad impression when someone has $500 taken from them and they have literally almost no recourse to get it back. They just write it off as a bad day. And
what is it? It's like $350 per asset seized, right?
Yeah, the bond. So let's say if they take your car plus $1,000 in cash,
right?
It'd be it's actually at the discretion of some government official, but under the law they could say, okay, give us $350 for your car and $350 for the cash, even to get a hearing to get your property.
See, dude,
back.
that's what sucks so bad too.
We're only one of 3 states that do that.
No, but really?
That's it.
See, I didn't know
most
that
of the
either,
states have recently dropped that.
Because for some of these people that they're taking assets from, bro, $700 is like rent money plus a week's worth of dinner.
Yes.
You know what I mean, man? Like, that's not some negligible thing for them to just write off, dude. That's like my kids' diapers and the electric bill. You know, plus I don't have a way to get to work now because you just took my friend's car.
Well, and see, that's the thing about the settlement that's a huge problem is you take someone's car, right? And then they need to get to work. And then now you're like, oh, here's this hearing process that may take 6 months for you to get your car back. Or just give us $500 in our police fund.
Right.
And we'll give you the keys
Of course you're going to give them $500,
the deck is
right?
stacked against you. Of course you are.
Dude, I would do that. And I know the law, I would still do that.
Yeah.
Of or charging them with a crime. It twists the priorities of law enforcement and incentivizes policing for profit. It also turns the disastrous war on drugs into a source of revenue for law enforcement agencies. According to the Institute for Justice, the Department of Justice has more than $4.5 billion in its civil asset forfeiture fund, an increase of more than 4,700% over the last generation. When added to the Treasury Department forfeiture fund, the government took more than $5 billion from Americans in 2014. For the first time on record, the government seized more money than burglars stole from American citizens. And the federal government doesn't limit forfeiture to its own jurisdiction or agencies. Through the now suspended equitable sharing program, the federal government allows state and local police to circumvent their own state laws and use lax federal laws to execute the seizures, in exchange for kickbacks of up to 80% of the proceeds. Civil asset forfeiture gives police incentive to disregard due process, separation of powers, and federalism. It's inconsistent.
All right, so look, we've p-worded people off enough here. This is a family-friendly program. P-worded. Yeah, you don't understand. No, you can't say it. Don't say it.
You can say it.
I'm not gonna say it.
Say it.
Don't say it.
Do it.
It's the P word. We p-worded enough people off here.
Is it Pelosi?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is
yes,
that-
Eric, it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's Pelosi. You're right. See, okay, we Pelosi people up. Hey, that fits. That actually fits way better than the real word. Let's go with it. We Pelosi people up enough people off here. Eric, go ahead and tell them there are some silver linings, right?
There definitely is. So let's start locally. So in Tennessee, again, back in 2016, we had 2 legislators sign on to a meaningful reform bill. This year we had 40.
I know we don't have too much time, but tell them how huge that is. That's huge. Massive, right?
I mean, that's massive. And we're talking local representatives, Martin Daniel, Lafferty, Bill Dunn, Dave Wright have all signed on this bill, Rick Staples. And then also, let's talk about across the nation. We now have 16 states that require criminal conviction, 9 states that have a restriction on equitable sharing. Most of this has happened since 2015. So we're moving in the right direction. Legislatively speaking, things are actually moving fast.
And one quick thing, too, about just lending some credence as to why those two these things that I just brought up, going from 2 to 40, okay? One of the reasons why that's such a big deal is, Tennesseans don't like change. They don't like fast change, nor should they, okay? American politics is a thing that's meant to happen over a slow, drawn-out, deliberate period of time. You're meant to debate about it. It's meant to be a slow burn, okay? Mm-hmm. So to get 2 to 40 in, 3 years now? That's a huge thing. More importantly, too, I remember talking to Judge Carter when we went up there, and one of the sole things that he kept coming back with is like, I'm sorry, y'all, practically speaking, we just can't make it work. I don't even know how you would implement that at a state level. So if we have all these other state examples that we can go to, how many did you say, 16 now?
16 criminal convictions, and including states like Arkansas, North Carolina, and Missouri.
Right? So now what that means is a lobbyist or a person like Eric or someone going, or even just you between your friends, if they don't want to support that, or you with the police officer, you can now point to 16 other states to say, I get it. You may not think it might functionally work out here in the state of Tennessee, but here's 16 other states that have done it, and it seems to be working out just fine for them. And lastly, I'll say as well, too, I feel like we're in pretty good company here, and I don't know when this trickle-down is going to happen, Eric, but I feel like we're in pretty good company if Justice Thomas is coming out and saying that this is one of the most unconstitutional things on the books right now. I mean, he recognizes the policing power is left with the 10th Amendment. If there's anything left with the 10th Amendment now at all, it's the policing power. That's why we have sanctuary cities. Oh, real quick. Sanctuary cities is against federal law, but the federal government cannot force local governments to enforce federal law. That's why sanctuary cities are a thing, just so you know. Thomas knows that. He also knows that, hey, if Justin Thomas is coming out, he never speaks about anything. Anything ever. He never gives opinions on public record. He rarely, if ever, actually asks questions or argument. If he's coming out and saying, hey, there's a problem with civil asset forfeiture, you know there's a problem with civil asset forfeiture. Last thing in the last minute here we have, Eric. 5-year perspective, all right? It may be a little bit much, but 5-year perspective, where do you think we'll be at in 5 years?
So, to me, this issue, civil asset forfeiture is basically going to be abolished. It's a matter of when, not if. It's moving too fast in the right direction. And, next year we're going to come back with a criminal conviction bill. We have people like Lowell Russell, former law enforcement, who's a legislator now. He said he would support that. We'll see what happens. But we're going to continue fighting on it. They've lost. We need all the support we can get. We were told we had over 1,200 people contact legislators this year. My goal next year, let's have 12,000. People contact legislators and just go from there.
I'll tell you that the most important thing for me, and I'm talking about by way of strategy, I'm also talking by way of legal context that this means. The most important thing for me is what y'all already did. At least start that conversation, if not already put it in the books, to get rid of the equitable sharing. In my opinion, none of the other stuff matters unless you can knock out that equitable sharing peg, because it's a way to circumvent immediately, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it undermines our state laws.
And there's a lot of other stuff we need to work on, y'all. We need to, this bill in particular actually raise the threshold, is that correct? From clearing or to clearing convincing, is that right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of other things we need to work on as well. Every single asset that's taken away from you, it's $350 per asset. So other stuff we need to work on, but Erik's right here. There is some silver lining. We're getting forward 5 years from now. Maybe your stuff won't be taken from you. Hey, that's been real news for today. Stick around for news, traffic, weather, all that. Glenn Beck coming up next, and then be back tomorrow doing it big.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Obviously, we're going to talk more about this as it gets closer to anything else before. But
So here would be a good opportunity. So this summer, there's going to be a true summer study with the full Judiciary Committee of
nice.
And they've already gone on record. Even guys who are opposing this bill want to have a true summer study.
Good on them.
So whenever that happens, I would say after the show, maybe we could do like a recap of that.
Let's try and get some of those legislators on too, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd love to get a Carter back on here. I guess he's still a holdout, obviously, Carter.
So Carter has serious concerns about the settlement.
The settlement?
Like the extortion cases.
Oh, really?
He has serious concerns about that.
Why wouldn't he, man? He was a judge before. He gets it.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. So we had a meeting with Carter this year, and by his own admission, he's done thousands of civil forfeiture cases.
Sure.
So I think one of the issues he may have is, how can I say I support criminal conviction when literally thousands of people I have took, he allowed their property to be taken without a criminal conviction. I think there might be like kind of a psychological.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And
that's totally reasonable too. It's not right, but I get it. I mean, I would probably feel the same way.
I don't blame him. Like, that's his history, that's his past.
Yeah. And frankly speaking too, if you're a judge, I mean, you have to enforce the laws in the books, man. This is something Sherry doesn't like, but again, I don't know what else a judge is supposed to do. You either get overturned in an appeals, you get made a mockery of by other judges, you possibly, I don't know, might get voted out again. Was he was a state judge, right?
I'm not sure.
I don't know what he was, but either way, man, I get it. I do. It sucks, but all right, man, we'll have that back up again. Facebook, I'm going to end it there. Y'all the best in the West and the East. I'll see y'all tomorrow.